Hello, everybody, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. It's Sunday, April 3rd, 3 days away from my birthday, and I am happy to be here with you today to talk about ever so many things. And I look forward to hearing your voices, hearing what you have to say about the issues that matter to us all, because it is a big deal. Your voice matters. The First Amendment is not just for Americans. The right to free speech is something that everyone should be able to celebrate around the world. And we hope that you will do that here with us today. Whether your government agrees, whether the internet overlords agree or not, we want your voice. For those who have never seen the channel before, I welcome you. I thank you for taking a moment to be with us. I hope you will find this to be interesting and informative at the very least. And we look forward to hearing all of your comments on Twitter, YouTube. You can send in comments through your chat, your tweets, and you can call in at 607-242-1582. Our phone lines are on. Yes, and I just confirmed it. The phone line is on to hear your voice in your phone calls from anywhere in the world. So there is so much that we can talk about today, so many issues and things that I think are important. But most of all, at any time, you can tell me, Mike, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I'll be happy to hear. Now, I know there's a couple of things that we want to start off with. I'm going to mention the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing in just a moment. I don't really care for the most part, but I know it's something that's been capturing everyone's attention around the world, especially in the United States. Will Smith has resigned his position in the Academy Award, which means absolutely nothing. He's lost, Bad Boys 4. Because we were all desperately waiting for the Bad Boys 4 movie. That was something that was on. Who cares? And he's going to not be able to make a couple of other movies. I feel so bad for the multi-millionaire Will Smith. Really, I don't. He did it to himself. He knew what he was doing. He knew the consequences of what he was doing. And you know what? If he loses the Oscar for Best Actor, I will not cry. I will not be upset. Now, you may have a different opinion. You may say, Mike, I don't agree with that. I think that Will Smith, he deserves better. Okay, fantastic. Tell me why. Because I think he was wrong. I think he was absolutely wrong. And I know people are, well, his wife, she's going bald. He's got alopecia, which is not a life-threatening illness. And, oh my God, we got to talk about that. You know what? I really don't care. Now, I know we're going to get into it a little bit because there is more to this. And it is, again, something that's very important and popular around the world. But honestly, I don't care about Will Smith or Chris Rock for that. But here we go. One thing I do want to mention is we're going to be talking a little bit about a story that just came out. You probably did not get a chance to see this. You probably did not hear about this because it just came out about what's going on in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and the Biden administration. Joe Biden is by himself. His Biden-Harris administration is destroying the Middle East peace. They are destroying the relations of the United States with some of the major Middle East powers, and we are seeing the results of that. It is the end of a 50, maybe 70-year relationship. You may say that's a good thing. Most likely, it is not. We are looking at the growth of China, the growth of Russia. We are looking at the potential end of the United States' influence. It could lead to the dollar no longer being used around the world, which means all of your wealth, all of the money you have saved is going to evaporate and disappear. All of the quality of life in the United States is going to take a significant hit. And you're going to see 1920s level of, I believe a depression is going to be happening. Now, you may disagree and you may say, Mike, you're misunderstanding that. We're going to get into this story that just came out from The Guardian today, just about an hour ago, that I don't think many people have thought about and understand the consequences. But before I get to that, this I think is one of the best ways to talk about Chris Rock and Will Smith. And this comes from Pastor Carl E. Mitchell III. And he says, and he puts up this post that says, your apology needs to be as loud as your disrespect was. I don't think anyone would disagree that Will Smith has not made an apology that is as loud or as significant or as honest as the slap that he gave to Chris Rock. That's just a fact. And it's important because there's so many people who are so focused on this, so many people who are trying to justify this act of violence, because that's what it is. It's an act of violence. And it's a big deal. Why is it a big deal? Because we're listening to people who are following guys like Bill Maher. And this is where it's such a big deal. Bill Maher mocks the sensitivity over Jada Pinkett's alopecia. Did you even know she had that? The overwhelming majority of the world, or people in the United States, or black people for that matter, no one knew and no one cared. Yes, she's going bald. I understand that's a sensitive subject for many women. It is not life-threatening. And I'm pretty sure Jada Pinkett, on her income alone, is able to get a wig. So, it's not the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to her. I understand it affects her feeling, but it doesn't stop her life at all. And her life has a lot of problems. The things she's done to Will Smith publicly are pretty damn devastating, embarrassing. And so Bill Maher says, put on a wig and deal with it, which she has been doing. And you know what? She got to be the subject of a joke. Yes, it was a joke that some would say is insensitive. That happened. It's called comedy. We deal with that. And that the answer to comedy that you don't like isn't violence. Because at the end of the day, what is it that what is Hollywood telling us? Well, the answer to something you don't like, something that hurts your feelings, is violence. Now, we're not saying this is the N word. This isn't someone inciting violence. They're trying to make a joke. That is Chris Rock's job. And what happens? Well, Will Smith decided that it was time for violence. I'm sorry, that's just the wrong answer. It's the wrong lesson to be shown to our kids. Now, you may disagree. You may think Bill Maher is perfectly fine. And John, I'm going to get to your comment, and thank you for joining us on the show today and being the first one to make a comment. But before I do, I want to highlight how bad is this? Because now we have this random woman, Anita, who's saying she wants to have everyone slap Bill Maher, also a comedian as well as a political commentator, and she wants him to be slapped. Really? Again, someone is saying something you don't like, and just like Will Smith, the message that's going out is it's okay to be violent against people who say things you don't like. I know how that feels when someone wants to confront you and try and threaten you with violence because they don't like what you want. Trust me, doing what I do, I get that all the time. So John mentions it's between Chris and Will. It's a guy thing, that's all. Happens every day, everywhere. It's not a big deal. And I agree, other than the fact that it was put on national TV. And once it became national TV, it became a bigger subject because people are using that to justify violence. And I think that's bad. John also goes on to say Bill Maher is a grifter. And I have said that on this program often, and I will say it again. He is not a member of the right. He's not even a centrist. He is a far left activist, always has been. Bill Maher in 2020, May of 2020, told women that Me Too was not as important as voting for Joe Biden. Bill Maher is the man who went up there and said that in 2019, July of 2019, said that he wanted a depression. He wanted Americans to lose their jobs, to lose their homes, so that Joe Biden could win an election. That's Bill Maher. That's who he is. And to say that today, well, because he's finally realized that Joe Biden is and the policies of the Democrats are starting to affect his life, now he's a little upset. You know what? I do not have any, I don't have sympathy for him. Bill Maher is a horrible guy. I think so. I've always had that thought. User has been banned. Hello. Good to see you here today. Why didn't she smack Chris? She's a strong woman. Well, yeah, she could have. Obviously, if she was the one. Remember, we've all seen the video now. It was Will Smith laughing at the joke because, quite honestly, the joke was funny. And if you didn't know that she had alopecia, if you didn't know that she had a bald head because she wanted to do it, which is what most people thought, you thought the G.I. Jane joke was funny. It was humorous. And it was only when she got pissed off that Will Smith had to then run on up on stage and do something. And he could have done many things. He could have gone on stage and said, Chris, that isn't funny. She's got alopecia. You should be more sensitive. He could have said things. Instead, he used his fist, his hand. And by the way, he slaps weak. I mean, Chris Rock took the hit, kept on going, barely even noticed. You know what? Chris he was a professional, and he was ever so helpful to Will Smith, because even though the crime was seen around the world, which means Will Smith should be arrested no matter what, because the police observed, like the rest of the world, the crime that happened. It was an assault. So there is no question. You don't need Chris Rock to say, I want to press charges. It was a crime witnessed by law enforcement. That means they can act, period. So Will Smith should be arrested. But going beyond that, if Jada Pinkett had the problem, Jada Pinkett should have said something. Jada Pinkett should have stood up. And I understand. If Will Smith wanted to defend his wife, he wanted to stand up for his woman, fantastic. He has a mouth, like he used right after he smacked Chris. He could have said anything, and he did. He didn't need to get up on stage and make an attack. That's wrong. Period. There is no justification for this, in my opinion. You can tell me I am wrong. You can tell me you think it's something else. Dal, it's good to see you and you're here with us. Dal says, even Smith was not really sincere in the event. He caught his wife's mood, did the math in his head, and decided to commit assault to stave off the subsequent harping he was sure to hear in his home later. Yeah, and it was obviously good enough because he went out and had a great party. We've seen the video already of him having a grand old time, not caring one iota about this moment. John mentions, Cordisco says, the Oscars is a story not because of the national attention, because we all are discussing it. Well, I really haven't. But this is a live stream. It is news, and it is having an impact politically, and that's why I want to talk about it. Side note, all jokes are submitted ahead of time. They're said in rehearsal, so they knew. You know, even if it was an off-the-cuff comment, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it was an approved joke, an unapproved joke. It doesn't matter to me. It was a joke. The answer to a joke you don't like, the answer to speech that you do not like, is never violence. Unless someone is advocating for imminent violence, they are advocating for trying to incite someone to commit violence, I do not believe that should be ever stopped. First Amendment, I am near absolute in my belief in the First Amendment. And that means things that you don't like. It means things you don't like. And that doesn't give you the right to commit violence, nor does it allow people to then use that same logic to try and ask for violence against someone else. I don't like Bill Maher's work. I do not agree with his ideology. I do not like the way that he is duplicitous, flipping sides to whatever is most advantageous to his lifestyle. But I still wouldn't tell you that you should attack Bill Maher. That is wrong, and it needs to be called out like I've just done. Because I've been in front of the crowds. I've had a mob of 50 progressive leaders of tomorrow, a bunch of the far left Antifa types come up and tell me that they hate what I had to say, that they didn't believe I was black, that I did not qualify as black, and that they could disrespect me, and they came after me. And I understand what it is to stand in front of that. So no, I don't believe that you are entitled to violence just because you don't like what you are hearing. I've lived it. I understand it. And you know what? No one is entitled to that. Doesn't mean you can't protest. Absolutely, protest all you want. But you don't get to have violence as an answer. Now, that's my point of view. If anyone that's watching the program says, Mike, I just do not agree with that, you are not understanding black women, you're not being appreciative enough, fantastic, call in, tell me why, because I don't really care. This is not about black women. It's about Jada Pinkett. It's about a reaction of her husband, Will Smith. It's about the way people are using that to justify other action. And that's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. We cannot justify something that was bad because it lines up with our political ideology. Bad actions are bad actions. Violence is violence. And we denounce it no matter whether or not you like that entertainer, whether or not you like their movies, whether or not you like their politics. It doesn't equal the justification. It's not justified, in my opinion. John Cordisco mentions, it's not that it's not noteworthy. There are thousands of other things that are way more important, and we're going to talk about them. I agree with you. And I'm going to talk about them, but again, this has been something that's been very public. A lot of people have an opinion. And I think Chris Rock is the hero of that moment because he did what should have been done, to be the bigger man, to stand up and to try and make this a private conversation, not a public one. But I just wanted to address that because I think it's important to understand the violence that's being suggested there. And I think that people who are, it's so stupid that there are even people who are trying to say that this is about former President Trump. Yes, literally. This is Asha Rangappa, who is, of course, a CNN analyst. Shocked, aren't you? And what she's talking about, this is about the independent psychological case study on how Trump got normalized. Are we kidding? She's trying to somehow connect Will Smith and Chris Rock to President Trump. What is wrong with people on the left and their absolute insanity over President Trump? This is 2022, the second year of the Biden-Harris administration. What is it about Trump? Trump had nothing to, he's not a member of the Academy. He wasn't in that audience. He wasn't on that stage. He doesn't talk to Will Smith. What is this insanity? What is wrong with these people? No, today is not my birthday, John. My birthday is April 6th. April 6th. So I'll be doing, I may be doing a marathon live stream on my birthday, April 6th, which I'm going to do. If I do the marathon, which I'm thinking, I'm going to go and see how long I can go. I'm going to try and do a 24-hour live stream. That's my thought. So that's what my birthday is about. And I'm just letting you guys know, throughout the day of April 6th, I will be probably on pretty much the entire day doing a nonstop live stream on everything. And you can jump on in at any point, call on in, and have your conversations with me about any subject and every subject. And I'm just going to keep going with it. That's my thought for my birthday. It's kind of a neat little thing. Dow mentions that Jen Psaki is the speaker, the press secretary for the Biden-Harris administration, is going to be going to, what do you know? She's going to CNN. She's going to the news media to try and make money off of her time as a member of the Biden-Harris administration because she can't hack it anymore. Mostly because she's been a liar and called out many times. So this is just insanity. And I wanted to point out, that's how insane it's gotten. And that's how insane the far left is. Everything is about Trump. Everything connects back to, that's their demon. He is running around in their heads, and they are just using that to try and justify everything. Will Smith is justified because Donald Trump. The world's going crazy because Donald Trump. Are you crazy? We're in the second year of the Biden-Harris administration. Let's focus on him because he's got problems. like I started to show off, as The Guardian just mentioned to us all, the problem is Joe Biden's relationship with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. No one else, not even Obama. It's got nothing to do with anyone except Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're the ones screwing this up, which is going to cost you more. By October, you're going to be paying significantly more. They're not willing to help you. If anything, they're willing to hurt you. They're going to help China. They're going to help Russia. You don't believe me? It's in the article. It's in the conversations. It's in the comments. This is from the Saudi Arabia. This is the former Al Arabiya chief editor-in-chief, Mohammed Al-Yaha. I can't pronounce the name. I know I got it wrong. Forgive me. And he says, the Saudi-U.S. relationship is in the throes of a crisis. I am increasingly disturbed by the unreality of the American discussion about the subject, which often fails to acknowledge how deep and serious the rift has grown. The Biden administration's belief of their success in the Middle East doesn't exist. Okay, a more realistic discussion should focus on one word: divorce. When Barack Obama negotiated the nuclear deal with Iran, gee, who's been telling you about that since January? Actually, since before then. Who's been talking to you about it? This channel. We Saudis understood him to be seeking the breakup of his 70-year marriage. The Obama-Biden administration, in their deal with Iran, which increased the global terror in the world, started a problem in the Middle East that the Biden administration is now making worse. How could they not be upset about the Iran nuclear deal? After all, the flaws in the deal are well known. It paves a path to Iran for a nuclear bomb. It fills the war chest of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, which has spread militias across the Arab world armed with precision-guided munitions to maim and kill people who formerly looked to America to help guarantee their safety. They're funding global terror. Why should America's regional allies help Washington contain Russia in Europe when Washington is strengthening Russia's and Iran in the Middle East? This is crazy. And here it goes. In other words, the Chinese are offering what increasingly appears to be modeled on the American-Saudi deal that stabilized the Middle East for 70 years. They're running to China. This is the Biden-Harris administration's policy in action. We are losing the Middle East, which means we lose the oil of the Middle East. And under the Biden-Harris administration, we are an importer, not exporter of oil, which means the cost will go up. And they have no desire to help us out. They don't care if it takes away from your livelihood. They don't care that it's going to cost you an extra $5,000 this year to be able to heat your home, to have electricity, and God forbid, if you have an electric car, to charge up that electric car, to charge up your electric bike, to use your iPhone and your Apples, and to go over to Starbucks. It's going to increase your cost of living, and it's going to be inflationary, and they don't care. Because in their eyes, the Biden-Harris administration gave up on them, and they're helping Iran to be able to create nuclear weapons and to deliver those nuclear weapons through ICBMs and to increase global terror. They don't want to help increase that, which means they don't care about the Biden-Harris administration. But this is something we're talking. But they're the bestest ever. They're supposed to be super geniuses. Meanwhile, the world is getting more destabilized and worse. And we're seeing the Middle East move over and saying, hey, China, you guys got a good deal. We're going to work with you instead, because Biden doesn't know what he's talking about and Kamala is an insult. If you don't think this is important, you haven't looked at your bank account lately. You haven't looked at your investments lately. You haven't looked at your electric bill lately, because you're in a year's time, you're going to be hoping that it's only up 40% like it is right now. You're going to be praying that your losses are only as much as they are right now. And they're telling you. Now, mind you, you're not hearing this from CNN. You're not hearing this from NBC. You're not hearing this from the New York Times. The major American news media is hiding this from you because they want you to support the Biden-Harris administration. They want you to vote Democrat in 2022. If you want to vote Democrat, that's on you. But be aware, the American news media is hiding the comments, the statements, the reality that's going on. There's a reason why Saudi Arabia won't take the phone call of Joe Biden. They won't even take his phone call. And they're not helping the energy crisis that America is growing into because of the Biden-Harris administration policies that started day one he got in office and closed the XL pipeline, amongst other things that he has done. So as much as Jen Psaki is trying to set herself up for a great show on CNN that no one in the world's going to see, she's lying to you when she says, oh, well, they got all the leases. Yeah, but they don't have a road to that lease. They don't have a pipeline to take the oil and gas from that lease to anywhere else, like your home. They're just lying by omission so that you'll vote Democrat in 2022 and it won't be an absolute landslide, so that they will have a chance in 2024 to be reelected. That's what this is all about. This is about power and an election, and the fact that you will suffer by not having jobs, by having higher costs, by not being able to feed yourself because inflation is destroying your wealth, because the dollar is being devalued as they print money left and right. They don't care because all they care about is getting your vote so that they stay in power. If you disagree with me, I'm more than happy to hear about what you have to say. Let me go back to some of the comments here because I want to hear this is a conversation, folks. I want to hear about you. So, user has been banned mentions that CNN Plus has failed. Tells you how bad CNN is. No one cares about them. And you're right. Dow says, wouldn't be surprised if the lunatics tried to say that the Smith versus Rock situation is the result of white supremacy stemming from Trump policies embedded systemic racism in our culture. They already have. As I just showed you, it's on Twitter. They're already making that claim. It doesn't mean anything. It's not realistic, but that's where they go. John Cordisco says, who wants to be Mr. Magoo's press secretary? Because equating Mr. Magoo and Joe Biden. But you know what? Mr. Magoo wasn't dumb. Mr. Magoo was just blind. He couldn't see. But he was a good-hearted individual who actually, and for those who are younger, you probably have never seen the Mr. Magoo cartoon. It's a character who's an older man who has these enormous glasses that are super thick, and he can't, even with them, he cannot see. And the whole joke is that this guy is running around doing stuff. He's like virtually blind, and he's getting in and out of misadventures. And it's just watching people react to him and him going through these scenarios, kind of like a Pink Panther-esque Detective Clouseau, bumbling his way through things, and they work out. And the joke is watching them happen. So, and to say that Joe Biden is bumbling through things, yes. To say that Joe Biden has no idea what he's doing, okay. But Joe Biden isn't blind. He can see what he's doing, and he doesn't have your best interests at heart. So there's that. Dow mentions Dr. Jill Biden assumes the role as press secretary, Babylon Bee. Well, actually, according to Joe Biden, which was announced, covered by the New York Post yesterday, Joe Biden yesterday was talking at a press conference, and he told everyone that the vice president under Barack Obama was Dr. Jill Biden, not himself. Dr. Jill Biden was vice president under the Obama administration. The Babylon Bee can't keep up with the insanity that is Joe Biden, I tell you. Lynn, it's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Lynn says, "You rock, Michael. Happy early birthday." Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think people will be surprised by what I'm going to do on my birthday. I hope people will enjoy it. But thank you for the early birthday wish. John mentions that, yeah, Magoo wasn't just blind. He was dumb. He was blind. That's it. Watching trains go by. Good to hear from you. Haven't seen you for a little while. Thank you for joining us today. Watching Train says, the happiest day of my life was when Mr. Magoo got off Gilligan's Island. Sadly, I think Biden is more like Gilligan at this point. I think that's an insult to Gilligan. Again, for those who are younger, Gilligan's Island, TV show. You've probably seen it on Nick at Night. It was very well loved in the 60s, early 70s. Check it out. It's fun, innocent. It's innocent fun. Check it out. And I think Gilligan is more intelligent than Biden. There's my thought. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I can show you Gilligan, as dumb as he was, didn't cause as many problems for the people on that island as Joe Biden is causing problems for the United States and the world. That's my belief. Watching trains go by, happy birthday in case I miss it. Thank you. I appreciate that. User has been banned, says Biden's a reverse MacGyver. He can turn anything into crap. Well, he probably can. Wow, we have a lot of movie and TV references today. That's kind of cool. But it does apply, I think, in a lot of ways. I think it's very applicable. But let's look at this, because I think this is really important. By the way, before I go into some other stuff, I do want to mention something that we've been talking about for a while. One of the few places that is the bird flu, which we've been talking about since January. It is continuing to grow. Iowa's bird flu, now 13 million birds have been destroyed. Please, I know a lot of people have made a great choice to be able to raise chickens and get their own eggs and to have their own poultry. This is not isolated to the Midwest. I was talking to someone recently, just this week, who has chickens in their community and in their home. And I've been warning, be careful of the bird flu, because it is in New York, it's in Vermont, it's in North Carolina, it's in Iowa, it's in Wisconsin. It is in, I believe, 13 states in the United States. It is global. It is one of the reasons why the cost of chicken is going higher and higher. Besides transportation, besides energy, it's the bird flu that's driving up the cost of chicken specifically. Keep that in mind, folks. Keep that in mind. Be careful with your chickens if you have them in your homes. This is just a service. What do they call them? Not MPAs. PSA. Public service announcement about the bird flu. Please, it is getting worse. It has been getting worse since January. We've been tracking that on this channel with you. We have seen millions, now tens of millions of poultry that have been destroyed. Please be aware of that. Please be careful with your chickens if you have them in your homes, and be careful in your purchases. That also reminds me, please, as we've been saying before most of this year, start buying 10% more food, buying 10% more of your supplies, because inflation is going higher. Stagflation, as we have been talking about, is coming. Recently, it was Michael Busler, who is a Stockton University economist, was recently talking on Thursday and confirming what we've been saying on this channel for about a year, that we are looking towards stagflation. We are looking at inflation in the double digits in the United States, that we are going to see our economy stall, and this is going to be bad, worse than what most people have thought. It's not just me saying it. It's now Michael Busler, an economist, who is also confirming what we believe. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So I wanted to make sure you knew about the bird flu, and a big deal. Dow says, I can foresee a situation forming where a combination of inflation, higher taxes, and corporate government market manipulation, property ownership will plummet. Well, property ownership is plummeting because BlackRock is out buying a lot of property. And we are seeing inflation in taxes, and we are seeing people who are not able to keep up with their mortgages. And a lot of people still aren't working. We have not kept up pace. In fact, we just missed another. People don't realize this. We just had inflation come out. The unemployment numbers come out. And I don't think most people saw this. And most people aren't aware. Yes, 3.6 is the government's unemployment rate. We missed 400,000 people, new jobs in March. That's 12% below what was expected. It sounds like a great number. We missed again. We have been consistently missing since October. The economy is not keeping pace. I know the news media is going to focus on, look, it was 431,000 jobs. Oh, look, the unemployment rate's 3.8%. Except that's not, those numbers are great. They're meant to distract you because we aren't keeping pace. That number is a bad number. And we're not seeing real growth. Look at this. This is from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And this is their recent numbers. I'm not going to focus on numbers a lot. I know everyone hates it when I do numbers. But I want you to see something. So in looking at these numbers very quickly, what you're seeing is the number of people who can only get part-time jobs. That number has been steady and growing. It's not decreasing. That's a problem. The number of businesses in the United States is stagnant. We're not growing. Small businesses are the engine of employment in the United States. 70% of all jobs are small businesses. They're not growing. The population is growing. The need for jobs is growing, but the businesses aren't growing. And this is from the Department of Labor Statistics itself. And I look at this on a regular basis, but I want you to understand, folks, we have a problem here. I know everyone hates it when I show numbers and stats. I look at this stuff. This is why I'm telling you the economy's in a bad shape. Because they want you to focus on 3.6. The unemployment level went down. Yeah, except they're not counting a lot of things in that number. They're not paying attention to how many people actually can get jobs, how many people are with, and yes, it's a smaller number, but how many people have part-time jobs? What's going on with the number of small businesses? Are they growing? Are they keeping pace with the population? The answer is no. The economy, by every metric that is important, is getting worse. And news media is hiding that from you because they give you this headline and they talk about, oh, look, big number. Doesn't this look great? Big number. Good number. Oh, don't worry about the details in the fine print. Don't pay attention to the fact that this trend is not in your best interest, that we are not doing as well as we should be doing or even could be doing. I know. And if you want it in the simplest way, because I know numbers, everyone hates when I talk about numbers. I know that no one likes when I review the unemployment rate. It's like the lowest viewed things I ever have. The bottom line is we don't have enough people working. We don't have enough small businesses being created. We have energy prices that are going up. Inflation is growing. And we are printing money like crazy, which makes our money worth less. You add that all together, and you have an economy that's going towards a recession. Actually, I think we're in a recession, and we are quickly approaching a depression, which would not surprise me to start before 2023. That's my belief. You may say, Mike, I'm wrong. You may say there's great economic news out there. I'm waiting to hear it. Please send me a message online. Call in 607-242-1582. Tell me how the economy is doing well. I know on, what was it, CNBC, there was a couple of people who were trying to convince people the economy is doing so great. How could you be upset? because the majority of Americans who aren't Will Smith, who aren't Joe Biden, who aren't Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, who actually go out to the store and buy food for themselves and their family, know the economy is not doing well. Let me see some more of the comments here. So, Dow mentions that people will have to sell off property to afford taxes and will wind up contributing to the homeless crisis. We're going to talk about homelessness. We're going to talk about selling property to pay off taxes, unrealized taxes. This is what's coming down the pike. I'm going to mention that in a second, Dow. User mentions they want everyone in cities renting rather and everything down to shopping bags. You don't get to own stuff anymore. And I agree with you, user. They are trying to push people in that direction. Dow mentions haven't found much reporting on the impact of the bird flu's spread outside of commercial producers. Have you seen anything about small individual independent flocks? No one's talking about it. There is no coverage on it. From what I have spoken to individuals, and this is a very small group, individuals that I know who have chickens, who have small personal farms, in their back of their homes. That isn't backyard farms, I think they call it. Backyard farming. No one has mentioned to me that they have had a case of bird flu. At the same time, I do know of one case where one individual had, in the central New York, one person I know of had their flock destroyed, and several people are afraid to allow the local government to come in because they are believing that they're going to have their flock destroyed just in case. But you don't see regular testing of individuals' backyard chicken. It doesn't really happen much. So it could be a problem right now, and people just aren't checking to find out. So we don't know. Watching Trains Go By mentions, we know produce and livestock cullings are manufactured for a purpose. Neil Ferguson of the United Kingdom, he has something to say on this. His faulty predictive model was used in the UK, then USA, used to predict it. There are a lot of bad predictions out there. I cannot say for sure. But I can say these are things to keep in mind and to be aware of. And just be prepared. Again, we're trying to help you be prepared. I'm not telling you definitively this is the answer or that this is something that's going to happen to your chickens or your farm. But I am telling you, be aware it is more widespread than the major media is telling you. It is affecting multiple states at the same time, and that there are poultry that are being destroyed all across this country. Again, it goes to the same idea. They don't want to tell you how bad things are because it doesn't serve their political agenda, which isn't the same thing as helping you. Where are the politicians in New York State that are talking about this? Shouldn't they be? Shouldn't they do what I'm doing right now, which is to make you aware that this flu is growing and that it is international and that you should be aware and protecting your property, your chickens that you are going to be eating? Shouldn't they be making the same comment that I am? And then let me ask you, why aren't they? Why isn't appointed Governor Kathy Hochul or Lieutenant Governor Benjamin, why aren't they saying, be aware of what's going on with your poultry, to keep an eye out for the bird flu that could affect them? Why aren't we hearing that from local state governments like County Executive Jason Garnar? Why isn't he making this announcement? Or Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo? Why aren't they telling the public this? How about Congressman Antonio Delgado? Why isn't he speaking about this? He's got access to this information. Because it would affect elections. It would take away your confidence in our government, and it would make you say, well, why didn't you tell me this, 6 months ago when we first started hearing about that? And we know we started hearing about it because the international media, the rest of the outside of the United States, they were talking about this. We showed you the international articles. So why aren't they doing their job to tell you to protect yourself and be prepared? Because it's bad for their election outlook, because it may take away votes. That's why I believe they're not telling you. And if Antonio Delgado, Donald Pardo, who I happen to know, Jason Garnar, who I happen to know, if they would like to tell me that I am wrong, I'm more than happy to give them as much time as they want. If appointed Governor Kathy Hochul wants to come on to this program and explain how I am misunderstanding it, that I am wrong, I will give her as much time as she wants on this program to explain in detail how I don't understand this. I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. I want to be proven wrong because that would be good for you. But instead, what I get is like what's happening with Antonio Delgado, the congressman of the New York 19th. They're hiding from us. They refuse to answer our questions, and they don't want to say anything because they're afraid of losing votes. And that is insulting. That is bad. And if you think it's just happening in New York, go to California, Michigan, Wisconsin. You go around, go to Illinois, go to Maryland, ask your elected officials there, and I guarantee you get the same answers I'm getting here in New York State. And that fact is being seen around the world, which means no one has confidence in the United States government because the government is hiding details that people in the United Kingdom, in France, in Canada, in Mexico, in Australia, in New Zealand, around the world, they're seeing this news and they're watching Americans hide this news, that politicians are hiding these facts from the American public. And they're saying, gee, I have no confidence in them. They're not willing to tell their own people about a problem that they should be aware of, that the rest of the world is talking about on a daily basis. That is a problem. User has been banned says, nope, they don't think they work for us. They think they rule us, as if we vote for rulers and not servants. We need to start calling them that until they lead for once. And I have long said on this program for years that what we have in the United States is a class of neo-nobles. I was recently talking on the Liberty First Foundation live stream on Friday, which is at 9 p.m. And I'm starting to do that weekly. And I was talking about the fact that these guys are neo-nobles. They think they are above us. They think that once they get in, and this is a fact, if you get elected to Congress and you make it past your second election, you have more of a chance of dying in office or retiring than you do of losing. You have an 88% chance of being reelected year after year, no matter what happens, no matter whether you're good or bad or anything else. You have the greatest chance of being kicked out of Congress after your second term is either you are dead or you retire. Even corruption isn't a major factor of people leaving Congress. Retirement and death are most likely the reasons why someone in Congress will not stay in Congress, which is why we have people who are in Congress today who have been there for 40 years or more. That's insane. And that they should still be, none of them should be. I believe in term limits. I don't believe anyone in any elected office should be in that office for more than 6 years, period. I don't care if it's local, state, federal. No one deserves to be in office longer than 6 years. Anyone who is in office more than 6 years starts to become corrupt. They start to lose focus of what it is to live life like an irregular American, and that has always been bad for Americans. That is my belief. Now, you can tell me, Mike, you think I'm wrong, and you think that term limits aren't necessary, but I don't know. Hang on. Hang on, I'm going to ask. Do you think term limits are important? Do you think they make a difference? Because I think they do. And I think they're vital. And I think we need them to help us so that people aren't afraid, like Representative Antonio Delgado, who is afraid to go out and tell people you should be aware of the bird flu, watch out for your backyards, keep an eye on what's going on with your chickens and your backyard farming. He won't say that because he's afraid that that could take away from votes from him. Antonio Delgado is, and I want to show you this. No, wrong one. He won't answer letters. We sent this letter to his office. We sent that 4 days ago. In 4 days, they have yet to make a single statement. They will not respond to us. This is important. This is about the the FEMA emergency management funding, federal emergency management funds to Broome County, part of the New York 19th district due to the gerrymandering of New York State. And he won't answer a question about the funding, which one I don't think he actually has done anything for. He's stealing the work of the Tenney office, of Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney's office did the work months ago. And guess what? Here he comes up, Johnny come lately, and he's stealing her thunder saying, look at the great job I did that I never, ever did, which is why he won't give me a date. When did he do the work? Show me the date. He shows me the date. I'll make a public apology. Guess what? I've never had to make the public apology. Why? Because he won't show me the date. Because he knows he didn't do the work. And this is about him getting an advantage, him getting the ability to get more votes, which is dishonest in the highest order. He won't answer questions about whether or not this funding is going to let New York State rehire some of the 34,000 doctors and nurses and healthcare workers that were fired by Kathy Hochul, the appointed governor, because they wouldn't listen to her, because they didn't agree with her mandate, her overreach of government power. And he won't answer that question either. Why? It might hurt another Democrat in an election. Representative Antonio Delgado is dishonest. And he is worse than being dishonest. He is being deceptive. And he is just not serving his public. And if you love Representative Antonio Delgado, fantastic. Tell me why. Tell me why he is entitled to hide from the public, to hide from the news media, and his staff know who I am. He knows who I am. The other Democrats in the Broome County and surrounding region, they've talked about me to him. He knows exactly who I am. He knows exactly what this program is. He knows that Democrats have come onto this program and done interviews with us for years. He knows we are a recognized member of the press, and he refuses to respond to us. He refuses to answer us because he's afraid of the answer. I don't know. So I have a problem with New York Representative Antonio Delgado because he's hiding important information from the public and refusing to answer questions that he thinks might hurt his election chances. And that is dishonest, and that isn't serving the people, and that is a problem. And I think any representative of any elected official who will not answer questions from the news media, then they don't deserve to be in office, period. Forget about term limits. They don't deserve to be in office because they're not doing their job. Besides the fact that Representative Antonio Delgado is inefficient, forget about the fact that he's not effective. He's hiding for the benefit of being able to manipulate you and to get more votes. And I think that is wrong. And yes, user has been banned. You mentioned term limits are double-edged. You're right. There's a benefit for having someone in longer. But I don't think that is outweighed by the corruption and the inefficiency and the lack of a connection to the public. So you make a good point. We lose the consistency of our leadership. But look at what the consistency of leadership has done when we haven't had term limits. Is that in our best interest? Nancy Pelosi's been in office for 4 decades. Chuck Schumer has been in office for 4 decades. Nancy Pelosi's telling us that we need to enact legislation without knowing what that legislation is, before it's even printed, without reading a single thing. Nancy Pelosi is the one who's telling us that unemployment checks are a stimulus, that they're good for the economy. We've got Maxine Waters, who has been, and I want to show you this. Maxine Waters is standing around telling homeless people to go home because, and even though she says she's the hardest working woman in Congress, Maxine Waters is out there saying that she is doing her job. And her job is so ineffective that people who are in front of her are telling her they have been homeless for years and that she isn't getting anything done. And her answer to them is, nope, I'm not going to listen to you. No, 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 go home. And the homeless people are saying they can't go home. There is no home to go to. And Maxine Waters is tone deaf. Why? Because Maxine Waters lives in a gated home with security. She is worth a couple $1 million and she doesn't care. She doesn't live with these people. She doesn't live with her constituents. She doesn't go to the store with her constituents. She doesn't listen to them. They obey her. She is completely disconnected and she won't listen to homeless people saying, we can't go home. Help us. So would I prefer to have term limits rather than Maxine Waters in office another year? Yes, I would. Would I rather have term limits than have Antonio Delgado ignore the public and the news media? Yes, I would. Does that mean that we lose some of the advantage? Yes, but I don't see much of an advantage when we have someone like Antonio Delgado who is ineffective. We have people like Maxine Waters who are ineffective. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who don't have an understanding of economics whatsoever and are ineffective. No, I'm more than willing to let those people not gain more power, gain more traction, and lose them, as well as good people as well, rather than have them in for more than 6 years. Yes, I would. Now, I am perfectly happy to hear anyone, and I know I get passionate, I get loud. Hey, I'm a black guy from the Bronx. I'm a black Hispanic from the Bronx. We speak loud. So if that annoys some people, I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm passionate. I speak loudly when I speak. I speak authoritatively, absolutely. But I am more than willing to listen to anyone who disagrees with me. And if you want to call in to 607-242-1582 and you want to tell me, Mike, here's why I think you're wrong, I will listen to you. I will respectfully understand and listen to every word you say. And I will have a conversation with you. And if I am wrong, I will, or I change my mind, I will be more than happy to say so publicly. I am not above hearing what the other side of the argument is. I think I do a lot of work to make sure that I do. But I'm willing to hear you. And I want you to know that. And as for these politicians, they do know that. I tell them that not only in the letters that I send to them, but they talk to me privately. They know me. They've had conversations with me. They know that they can come onto this program and be treated with all the respect that their office entitles them to. And whether or not I agree with anything that they say, they will be given the opportunity to speak without a filter, without edit, in context, to say whatever they believe is the correct answer. And they don't. Because they don't care about you. They don't care about term limits. They care about power. User's been banned says, we need an informed populace, which means a press that does its job. I agree, and I try. I wish more would try. I wish I didn't need to do some of the things that I do. But that is not the case. User goes on to say that the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of conscience, the courier of his news, that is what we look for in strength and assistance, confidence that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free. And I agree with you. It is the news media's job to call out these politicians, to call out bad laws, to look to the future and understand the consequences of what is being done today. That is what we try to do on this channel. I'm not telling you that I'm perfect. I'm not telling you that we always get it right. Although, if you look at our track record, we're more right than we're wrong, significantly. But that being said, we want you to have the best life possible for you. And we want to hold these politicians accountable and make sure that they are as effective as possible, as efficient as possible, and as accountable as possible. And I say that to Republicans as much as I say it to Democrats, and I say that to libertarians as much as I say that to conservatives, because I don't care about your political party. I care about your effectiveness. I care about your efficiency. I care about liberty and freedom overall. Do I think that Republicans get it more right than Democrats? Yes, I do. Does that mean that they're absolved of being called out when they're wrong? Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to not have a conversation about it. Yeah, those were great words. And it is a great message which we no longer hear. By the way, folks, I know I always say if you disagree, call in to 607-242-1582 because we're more than happy to hear someone who disagrees with us. But I also want you to know if you agree with us, you can call in too. Or if you want to talk about something that I'm not speaking about, you think I've missed a point, or do you think there's something more important to speak about, call in. The phone lines are open. I'm happy to hear. That's what the live stream is about. This is about you. I have certain points of view, certain topics I think we should talk about, but it's about the conversation between you and me and the rest of the world, and people from around the world are more than welcome to join into this conversation. And we are on Discord as well as YouTube and Twitter, so we're happy to hear your voices. So before I go over to what's happening in the Middle East and how the Biden administration, as being reported by The Guardian from the United Kingdom, not CNN, not New York Times, it's coming from across the seas, across the pond, they have to tell us how bad the situation is getting with the Biden administration internationally. But before I get to that, let's talk about gun control for a second, because this is going to be a big part of the 2020 midterm elections. And everything that is going on right now, everything that is happening in our government right now is all about the 2022 midterm elections. This is all about trying to get Democrats to come out and vote and to make independents vote Democrat. Everything that's happening, the news media is focused on that. Politicians are focused on that. That's just the reality. So let's actually look at this. And give me 1 second. Just want to fix something here. So Washington State, 9 states are restricting gun magazine size. Did you know that? You may not have heard that story. I mean, it came out of, again, this is coming from The Guardian, March 23rd. Jay Inslee decided that if we take away magazines, if you have a magazine that holds more than 10 bullets, that's going to make you safe. That's what he decided. I want you to know, and oh, by the way, in Indiana, we see that the governor in Indiana on, this was March 22nd, Governor Holcomb signed a bill that got rid of any permits. You can conceal carry without a permit because they think that's going to be able to help make you safe. I want you to understand that right now in the United States, there are 700,000 people who have a license for a machine gun right this moment. By the way, machine guns hold, and this is from the ATF. These documents I'm showing you right now, it's from the ATF. 700,000 people have machine guns, which are able to hold more than 10 bullets at a time. And you're perfectly safe and has no impact on your life. Now, why is that a big deal? Why do we care about whether or not you're able to have a large magazine? Why does it make a difference? Because you may be hearing today about what happened yesterday in just a few blocks away in Sacramento, California, that there were 6 people who were killed and 10 people wounded in a mass shooting. By the way, I'm pretty sure the mass shooting were a bunch of black people. I'm pretty sure of that because not one news article wants to mention any of the victims. They notice whenever there's a problem, whenever it's gun control, when they're trying to send out a message, they will tell you the shooters were white. The shooters were white supremacists. They always try and tell you that. The second it's not someone who's white, the second it's not someone they can easily claim is a white supremacist or Republican, then we know nothing about them. We don't know if they're black or white. We don't know if they're Hispanic. We don't know what their voting record is. We don't know any of that information when it's not part of the message being white men Republicans are bad and that they're going around killing everyone, which is a lie. So in this case, we know that 6 people were injured, 10 of them were wounded, which I again imagine they're all black because they won't tell you who they are. And we know this happened at 3 a.m. And people are grieving. They're horrified by this. This is what the news media. And I want you to understand. Here's U.S. State Senator Alex Padilla from California, horrified and deeply saddened by the gun violence we witnessed this morning in Sacramento. Okay, how about Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg? Words can't express my shock and sadness this morning. The number of dead and wounded are difficult to comprehend. Rising gun violence is the scourge of our city. How about this? This is Senator Bob Hetzberg of San Fernando Valley. I'm deeply saddened for the people of Sacramento today, but I'm also angry that there is not more we can do to stop gun violence. Wait a minute. The problem is the crime. This is like Eric Adams, which I talked about earlier this week. In fact, I was talking about it in this article, in this video, which is Political Dishonesty Gets Votes on March 31st. The problem isn't the gun violence. The problem is the crime. It's that someone decided that the best thing they could do is shoot a bunch of innocent people. It's not the gun, it's the criminal. It's the same thing that we saw with Eric Adams, who's trying to talk about, well, I have to get an anti-gun unit because a mom was robbed. The problem wasn't the gun. It's that the mom was being robbed. It's the crime that is the problem, the underlying issue. The problem in what happened in Sacramento isn't that there were too many bullets. The problem is that the criminals thought that it was okay to kill innocent civilians and that they could get away with it. There's your problem. It has nothing to do with how many bullets that they have. And in fact, it has nothing to do with all of the issues. I want you to understand, California has told the people of California, much like the people of New York State, have been told over and over again that assault weapons are the problem. Large capacity magazines are the problem. To have ammo is a problem. They have dozens of laws to try and tell you just take away your Second Amendment rights because that's going to make you safe. In fact, according to, and I want to go to, where is it? Reason Magazine did an article. Here it is. 27,900 research publications have been made on the effectiveness of gun control. We have been told 27,900 times that the gun control, having a smaller magazine, we've been told not having the ability to have guns, to punish legal gun owners. We've been told over and over that this is the effective way to end gun crime for decades. Since the 1970s in my lifetime, at least 4 decades of my lifetime, I've been listening to Democrats say over and over again, it's a gun ban. We have to get rid of the bullets. We have to get rid of the magazines. This will make you safe. Here's another law and another law that says that you can't have this magazine, you can't have that gun. And you know what we have found? Out of 27,900 research reports done over decades, nothing. Not one of them is actually accurate or conclusive. This isn't me saying this. This is from Reason Magazine. Came out on March 31st with no fanfare. Nobody in the news media wants to talk about the fact that out of 27, let's round it up, 28,000 research reports, there isn't one that can point to and tell you that the gun laws that they have made in California, in New York State, across this country, not one of them has made you safer. There is no evidence. Gun bans, New York Safe Act, red flag laws, magazine sizes, not one of these things that they have been telling you for decades is going to make you safer. Not a single one. Mike, you don't know that. Sure I do. Federal Bureau of Investigation's Crime Data Explorer. Let's look at the numbers themselves. You are being told, oh, guns are a bad thing. Rifle, assault weapons, rifles, they are dangerous. Rifles. This is a 10 years, in a decade, over a decade, from the United States Federal Bureau of Investigations. You can look this up. Links will be in the description. When you go through that, after a decade in total, rifles, assault weapons, 372 people were killed by them. Knives, 2,811 people were killed by knives in the same 10 years. People were barehanded, beaten to death. 1,048 people were beaten to death by bare hands. Baseball bats and hammers were used 906 times to kill another citizen. Rifles, those assault weapons that are so deadly, those magazines that are so deadly, 372. It isn't the problem. They're not addressing the problem. That's over 10 years. In California, where they have all these laws, they're not protecting you from homicide. They're not protecting you in your life. They're lying to you. They're using you for the power to be able to take away your rights and to take away your freedoms. It is one big lie. Now, if there's someone who doesn't like firearms, I don't care if you don't like them. If you're going to tell me that, Mike, you're just misunderstanding the data, I am more than happy to have this conversation. I am more than familiar with all the data, all the main data in the United States, the FBI reports, the CDC, New York State's GIVE report, California's reporting. I will be more than happy to have a conversation, and please tell me how red flag laws and or New York Safe Act and or any of the gun control legislation put out in the last 3 decades has helped anyone. I'll be happy to have that conversation, because the fact is crime is going up not because of the size of a magazine. Crime is going up because of bad policies by Democrats in particular, and many politicians overall, bad policies that are not helping people, which is why the constituents of the 43rd District of California, Maxine Waters district, they are homeless for years because politicians are more busy going out trying to get reelected than they are trying to help the people, because they don't think the people matter. Not beyond voting. That's it. And all you're supposed to do is vote the way they want you to. You're a checkbox, and you're meaningless outside of that checkbox. And God forbid you actually try and talk to these politicians, because they don't care. Just ask Antonio Delgado and wait to see how long it takes him to answer you. Let me go back to some of the comments. Let's see here. So, user has been banned mentions gun control is trigger discipline, carrying property and education on use. Gun control is gun control. According to Joe Biden, it's common sense gun control, which doesn't exist, that's going to protect you. He said that while he was vice president under Obama. He says that today. Never happened. It is a lie. Watching Trains Go By says, imagine the mainstream media evolution through the ages. Today there is too much fist violence, rock violence, stick, club, spear, bow, arrow, sword, musket, gun violence. The only constant are bad people. I agree, Watching Trains. That is the constant. Bad people. And we are giving bad people more and more excuses to be able to make the crime. Oh, it's not your fault. It's the way you were raised. It's not your fault because of the color of your skin. Institutional racism. You can go ahead and go out and commit that crime. There's always an excuse that's being offered. And I'm telling you, don't. And the reason why they put these excuses out, the reason why they won't prosecute these criminals for the crimes that they are committing, because it creates an emergency that these politicians have to fix. It keeps them in their job. You can't get rid of me now. I'm trying to save you from gun crime. You've got to reelect me. I'm the one who's going to help you. You can't get rid of me now. I'm the one who's going to get you housing so you're not homeless anymore. No, they're not. They're the reason why you're homeless. They're also the reason why criminals are running around being able to commit more and more crimes. I don't know. It seems obvious to me, but, that's why the news media hates me. It's why politicians like Antonio Delgado won't answer me. Because, obvious. It's pretty direct. User has been banned, says crime stats are racist and inaccurate because fees, according to some Democrats. Trains. Are we saying that people... Hang on a second. No. That's my puppy, by the way. Con. Come here, Con. Say hello. Say hello to everybody. See? This is Con. Oh, don't... Say hi, Con. Con's going to stand. Hi. Look in the camera. Hi. Okay. No. I'm down. Very good. No. No. So, he's a little jealous right now. So, that's my puppy for you. So, but folks, I'm more than happy. I'm just trying to hold these politicians accountable. And I ask them on a regular basis, as you see in this program, not only in the live stream, but throughout the week, for months, for 15 years, I ask these politicians questions. And in every single case, every time they do provide an answer, I provide it to you verbatim, in full context, every single time. I have never withheld a response from a politician, whether I agree with it or not. I have never edited a single word that they have ever made because I'm not going to do that. The whole point is to give you what they have to say, whether I agree with it or not. And I've always given them as much time as they want to come onto this program. It's an open door policy for every elected official from anywhere in this country to be able to speak about all of the issues they believe on and to tell me how wrong they think I am if that's what they want to do. And they refuse on a regular basis. And more than a few Republicans refuse as well, which says a lot about those Republicans as well. And I've called them out by name in the times that they have done so. So I just want you to understand the violence you're seeing in Sacramento today. Remember something. California has some of they have the most in number and the strongest gun control legislation in the nation. They're right there with Illinois and New York State. They are absolutely restrictive on multiple levels, and they have people who are trying to find even more ways to take guns out of your hands. And even with all of that, for decades in the bluest of blue states, every single idea that they have put forward, that they have promised you, absolutely promised, they said, vote for me and we will pass this bill. They did, and you aren't safer. You're just not. That's a fact. Look at the numbers and I have the numbers. It is a fact in the government. In case anyone's doubting me here, this is from Open Justice, the DOJ, Department of Justice of the United States, looking at California homicide crimes 2011 to 2020, looking over the data as directly as we can. And what do we see? That there has been, since 2011 to 2020, last date that they had data, 23%, 23.9% increase in violent crimes by firearms. Because gun control isn't working, because criminals don't care, because criminals are committing more crimes and people are dying. Because they're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on individuals like you and me, the 99.994% of gun owners in America, 165 million people who do not break the law, who are not a problem. That's who they are after. They're not after the criminals. They're not after the guys who are trying to kill you. They're after you. That's why Eric Adams in New York this week was talking about when a mother is being robbed, he's more concerned about the gun that the criminals used than the fact that that woman is being robbed. His priority should be on stopping them from robbing her, not trying to take away a gun from me. Because that's not going to make her safer. It's not going to help. One, the criminals don't care. They're still going to have an illegal gun. Two, even if they did get that gun, they're still going to rob that woman, whether it's with a knife or a baseball bat. And if people are wondering, well, Mike, what do you mean by that? What are you talking about here? This is it. Eric Adams. This is what you can see on Twitter. These two guys in the picture, you can see they have a gun. If they had a knife, Eric Adams wouldn't be talking about it. He wouldn't care. Eric Adams is talking about this because they have a gun, and he's upset that they have a gun. He's not worried about the fact that these two guys in this video go on to rob a mother and her child. He's not worried about that part. He's worried about the fact that they have a gun, and he wants to stop you and me from being able to own guns as law-abiding American citizens with the Second Amendment. He doesn't want that. But he doesn't want to stop the robbery that's actually happening. He's not addressing the robbery, the root crime that is actually the problem here. Please, if there is a practical progressive like Eric Adams out there that wants to explain to me why the gun is the bigger problem in a robbery than the robbery itself, please tell me, explain that to me. Tell me how that's going to save anyone. Please tell me how stopping me from owning a firearm is going to help some mother not be robbed. I want to hear that argument. I'm happy to hear that argument. Please tell me if I'm missing something here, and you watching this are missing something here. Please explain it to the rest of the world, because we're not understanding that. It doesn't make any sense. Watching trains go by mentions locks on doors only keep out honest people. Gun control seems to work the same way. It only keeps guns out of the hands of honest people. And I would agree. This isn't helping us on crime. This isn't about crime. It's never been about crime. It's about power. It's about the fact that you have less power to defend yourself, to protect yourself. That's what it's about. Because the representatives, they don't care. You know, many of them have firearms. Hell, Cori Bush hires a team of security to protect herself, as she tells the people of Minneapolis that they should have less police. Well, I'm sorry, not all of us are like Will Smith or Cori Bush, that we can have private security running around who are armed to protect us 24 hours a day, like Hillary Clinton, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We don't get to have that because we can't afford it. Does that mean we don't get to protect ourselves? According to them, yes. And if you're upset about this, you shouldn't be upset at me. You should be upset at what they are doing, because that's the bigger issue. User has been banned says, most, quote, legal gun owners don't commit crimes. That's true. Except when the a-holes taking firearms ban some stupid thing and create criminals overnight for having something that was fine in the first place. You mean like the New York SAFE Act, which overnight turned a swath, thousands of New York State residents, if not millions, became criminals overnight because of the New York SAFE Act. They didn't do anything different. It's just that New York State decided, we want to punish you now. We want to take your property now. It's insane. It is insane. I don't know. It drives me nuts. And this is important now. Why is it important to talk about that? Because let's remember that at this moment, right now, we have people we have people like Eric Adams, who isn't making anyone safer by trying to take away my gun. He's not stopping robberies. We have people like Anita who are saying it's okay to violently attack someone because you don't agree with what they say. That having ideas that are different is equal to violence. Do I need to protect myself against someone who thinks that what I think they don't like? Because it seems like today we have to consider that. And I can tell you that I consider it because I've had members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. I've had members of Citizen Action and the far left that have come up and have threatened me, that want to harm me because, well, I say things they don't like. Mind you, I don't care what they think, and I don't care that they want to make a threat because I'm still here. 54 years, April 6th will be 54 years later, and I'm still ticking. Guess what? Made through civil wars, earthquakes, fires, floods, pretty much every disaster that man has known, and I'm still here, not afraid. Thank you for being with us watching trains. I thank you for staying with us as long as you have. I always appreciate everyone. And I hope that you're going to have a great day too. Thank you for your comments today. I really do appreciate that. Hopefully you'll see us on April 6th. So there's so much that's interesting here. And really, folks, I want to hear what your voices are saying. I want to hear what you think about some of these things because I think it's important. When we are watching our government fall apart, and they are doing the worst things possible that are endangering our lives long term. I know they're saying, well, they're going to fix things. They're going to fix it for us. They're going to make it better for you. That's what they keep telling you. That's the promise. And the reality is, where's inflation? Where's inflation going? Oh, you got a call. Hello, and thank you for calling into No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael Voss, and may I ask, what's the first name?
It's Jason.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Not too bad.
So what's going on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different topics covered today.
Not even done yet. I'm not even close.
No, I know. There's a lot. I was actually looking at some things, and anyway, it's interesting. I was kind of looking at the positioning of the Democrats and also the administration and what positions they're taking, and to some degree, it's like they're taking ones that will rally the very far left part of their party, but really leaves more the moderate centers of their party, out. And to some degree, it's almost like, I see that there almost seems to be some sort of, it's kind of, they do a little back and forth because at the State of the Union, you had the situation where Biden basically all of a sudden was like, hey, you know what, we're going to fully fund the police. And then everybody, gets on board with that. And then on the other end, it's like when it comes to other social issues, like the situation with, Florida and the transgenders, and then the whole situation with the kids and then the schools of what, the bill had been, the left is doubling down on a position which a majority of Americans, completely disagree with. And that would only, further polarize them from, the center of the country where they would, hope to actually make gains with the moderates. Um, and so there's a lot of, positions where to some degree, I almost look at it and think that, their position right now is like, I wonder if they have inside polling data that's showing that their own, left-wing party is more of a jeopardy of dividing them than they're actually worrying about losing, to the Republicans. Or it could just be the simple fact is they already know they're going to get washed out, and then maybe to some degree now they're just actually trying to, keep their party together because
Let me answer that for you because you asked the question, and I actually have the answer for you from the left itself. This is from Axios, and it's on screen at the moment. And according to Axios, Democrats air anxieties after Biden's brutal NBC poll, a recent poll that just came out. And what they're saying is, and the net answer, according to progressive Representative Mondaire Jones out of New York State, he says that he thinks that the president has to look at the poll and do what he can using executive action, whether it is canceling student debt or stopping subsidies when it comes to fossil fuel infrastructure, which would materially improve the lives of American people. And I think, boy, his approval as we closer to November. Their goal is to go full on, double down, and get as progressive as possible. That's what Democrats are saying. They're also saying, like Democrat Representative Holly Stevens out of Michigan says, that Democrats have got to talk about something that's real and own up to being real, and that they are avoiding the president and just throwing him to the side. But their big thing is they want to double down. So what their answer is, no, get more progressive, do more things that most Americans don't agree with.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and the thing is that you look at where their party stands. It's like, that even the polarization and division, even within their own party, is there's just starting to show major contrast even within that, And like I said, part of the situation was exposed with the situation, with the different situations with what was it, Virginia and the transgender situation that they had there, and then also now with Florida where parents want to be able to parent their own kids and don't want teachers to indoctrinate them the way that they feel fit on those social issues, and they just continue to double down in that direction. It's not a winning solution to win the country, but it definitely solidifies their most left wing part of the party. And if that's the part of the party that they're catering to, I mean, I don't know what they're thinking, honestly.
Well,
It's just
let me ask you this, because we just found out, and again, this is on the screen right now, March 31st, according to CNN Politics, there are lawsuits that have now been filed over the Florida law, what Democrats like to call the Don't Say Gay law, which is not what it's called. It's not what it does. And they are looking to commit, they're going to sue to try and get this law reversed, because this law, which affects kids in kindergarten to third grade, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, they want to teach these kids to be gay. They want to have sexual conversations with children in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. That is what Democrats are suing for right now. That is what Democrats like, what's his name, the movie star, well, a bunch of the movie stars are all saying, no, this is what they want to focus on. They want kids in kindergarten, 5-year-olds, to have sexual conversations, and in particular, sexual conversations about being gay and being trans. This is what they want. Let me ask you, do you think your kids, your friends' kids, the people you know, do they want their kids as a kindergartner at 5 years of age to be told about being transgender or that they should be told about having sex?
No, I mean, I think the majority of the population would actually say that school has no place, public school has no place for that at any point. Um, and the thing is that, they always, we keep going into this thing is talking about a silent majority, but the thing is that I think that there is a majority of people that now are being silenced because even this conversation that we're having right here, this is just another opportunity for YouTube to ban you. Because we're talking about,
ban me. They're always trying to ban me.
yeah, but this topic here, I mean, it's just recently got a few, people, taken down, and the fact is though is that parents have already taken the position, and the only way that they're able to voice their opinion is by going to the polls and voting, against this sort of stuff and electing individuals who are going to fight for them because they can't even voice an opinion, they can't even have a conversation on Facebook, they can't have conversations, on YouTube or Twitter or any way, basically saying simple things that no, I believe, a boy's a boy, girl's a girl, and I want to raise my, child no matter what they think they are as what they were born as. And just by saying that and taking that position, they're being rejected. And so, there's a belief out there because, they're not being heard. The left does this a lot. They like to say, well, you know what, I see all our people, they're all, coming to these protests and doing all this stuff and, but I don't see the voices of the opposition. And I'm just like, well, you know what, you can't because you're not going to, because people, unfortunately, are being canceled, they're being shut down, they're being threatened, and they're being silenced.
Well, I know I got to say, I know they're being silenced, by the way, because I can't show this yet, but I just got a notification at the start of this program about Antifa Albany, who are now putting out a message that is being put out to there's a protest that's planned for April 23rd. And Antifa has decided to say that this protest against the government of New York State, saying that they have overreached, is racist and that everyone showing up is racist. They know no idea who's showing up and that they want to keep those people out of Albany. They don't want their voices to be heard. That's what the left does. I think that's aggravating. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's the thing though, is the people who are, there to silence other people's voices, from the left. I mean, they're given, victim status, and due to the fact that they're victims, even Antifa, they're saying they're a victim group. Then they, then when they are victimized by speech they don't want to hear, which is anything they don't want to hear, and they classify it, and then so they go shut other people down, then all they're really doing is, according to the Democrats or the left, I should say, they're basically just, stopping, people from spreading hate. And, it's getting old. I think for a lot of Americans, they're getting sick of being silenced. They're sick of, seeing things like you're getting shut down, from, different, comments you made where basically, when YouTube requires you to say that the cup is half full and you go say no, it's mostly empty, and then they're like, well, we're going to ban you because you just said it the way that we didn't want to hear it, and that's the sort of crap that is really starting to come to a head. And we can't forget too is that how sick a lot of Americans are of these COVID lockdowns. And not to bring that back up again, but we're gonna be seeing that go through another cycle, and it's already actually starting to pop its head up again. Because we're gonna see one thing is that in Florida, like again, this always happens with the cycle of COVID. Florida will start to get in the summertime when everybody goes inside, and then it will move on to the east. When the new wave comes by.
But Jason, we've spent $137 million to build a plant in Germany, not in America, in Germany. $137 million so that they can make more COVID tests that won't be built for another 2 years. So, of course, we know the pandemic is not gone. Got to make our money back.
I mean, the restrictions are still, insane the way that they're doing. I mean, New York schools, I mean, they're still all over the place with the testing and stuff. It still puts parents in a position where, they're treating this, they can't just treat it like, common cold. They're still doing it where if you're in contact with somebody, they got to watch you. And then if you do have the sniffles or something, then you got to isolate. And this pushes a massive burden on parents. And this is another thing that's killing the economy as well, too, is because, parents can't go back to work. I mean, they're going to have to because they're going to be broke, at some point, but I mean, they're really in a situation because for one, his parents obviously have got to be there with their kids, and they can't, if they are working, they can't just dump them off to somebody else. If they're saying, well, they're being isolated because of COVID, so you got to quarantine them. That means they can't be around other people. It's like,
wait, you're going somewhere that I have to, because of YouTube, I have to say that we do not deny that COVID is real. We cannot say and do not make any medical recommendation whatsoever. The vaccines are out there, and you may or may not choose to do so. That is between you and your medical advisor, and we have no position on COVID whatsoever, lest the censors of YouTube shut me down yet again. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's just this huge feedback loop that goes around in circles where it really puts, especially mothers with kids, who are the primary caregivers, statistically speaking, during this, COVID thing. And the problem is that this loop that they continue to create puts, these mothers on the edge where it's like, okay, they need to go to work, or maybe they can't. They've got the kids constantly being, kicked home even now and so it's putting a massive uncertainty. But that's one crazy aspect. But the thing is, they won't let that go, and that definitely is hurting the economy. It's just it is insane. And one thing I did want to talk about was the situation with the food. Again, I know I mention this like every week, but I think now it seems to be coming more to a head. But the one thing I wanted to point out with food was just one thing that I thought was really kind of amusing. I was kind of had to do some research of my own on this, and I was looking up ethanol. And we know that overall ethanol is very inefficient to actually produce. But the irony is, right now, ethanol is actually cheaper than oil. And Democrats have actually been lobbying right now to actually increase the percentage of ethanol and gas to actually lower the price. Well, the big dispute now is they figure if they do that, then it's going to increase food costs anymore. Well, as we know though too, is fertilizer is in scarcity as it is, and so you need a lot of fertilizer or ethanol for the corn to actually produce it. Well, this is how crazy and unwell thought out that the Dems are. Well, right now, when you look at the difference in crops between soy and corn, well, the thing is that most, even though I think there's more money potentially to be made in corn than soy, the farmers are actually opting to actually grow soy because they know that they need less fertilizer to produce that crop. And so now we're already in a situation where farmers are changing, what they're growing because of the fear of a lack of fertilizer. And now you've got the Democrats actually, instead of actually trying to increase the production of, oil being pumped out of the ground, they are now going to take, more resources, from fertilizer to want to redirect it to the ethanol corn, which will actually cause, more scarcity and more, inflation and, more, more demand for these products. It's just, they're just nuts. I mean,
there's something else about ethanol, and I've studied ethanol for a decade. So the big problem with ethanol and why you haven't heard about ethanol is because the environmentalists all know for a fact that ethanol actually deoxygenates the water, the oceans, in particular the Gulf. And the more ethanol that we use in the United States, the more we're going to kill every living thing in the Gulf of Mexico and eventually the Atlantic and Pacific. It is deadly. It is the worst thing for the environment you could possibly have. Besides the fact that it is less efficient to have more ethanol, it's 25% less efficient, like you were mentioning, which means you need to use 25% more oil to be able to do the same things you would do if you just had oil and gas. So it is less efficient and it is more deadly to our environment, and it takes away food from stocks and people's bellies because you're making corn for that. And yes, since we're going to have less fertilizer, as the White House has said itself, we're not going to have enough fertilizer for the crops this fall, which means the price of food is going to go up. There is a food shortage coming. The White House has said so. And part of what you're saying is it's even going to be worse because now you have farmers who are saying, well, why make corn, make soy? Because I'm not going to be able to have a big crop and I need to get paid so I can afford all the other crap that's going to be going up. So you're right. It's a big loop and it's a big problem.
Yeah, and I mean, it could, and the bottom line is that the Biden administration, it's like, you see them, just slithering around, when they were talking about permits and all this other stuff, and now they're being shut down, and now they're just continue to, double down on the most, insane parts, where now he does that, what is it, the military executive order thing to increase natural, resources for electrical vehicles in the United States. It's like, I'm like, really? I mean, we don't have those minerals, I mean, Canada does, but that's like it. You gotta go to Russia. You gotta go to China. I mean, China owns half of the stuff, from all the other countries. It's like
Africa. It's coming. Most of the rare earth metals are found in Africa, and they are mined by children. It's child labor. To get the rare earth metals to make the windmills, to make the electric cars, requires rare earth metals out of Africa mined by children. So we are effectively increasing the net child labor in the world for pennies on the dollar, so that a bunch of progressives can feel really cool when they plug in their Tesla that costs $80,000, that people around the world wish they could get $80,000 in 2, maybe 5 years. They pray for that these guys buy in 1 year. Yeah. It's a bunch of elitist posturing.
No, this is another negative feedback loop that drives me nuts, because this is crazy, because here they do it with the oil, so they don't want to produce oil. And what this does, actually, why those kids in those countries have to actually do those jobs, is because, they can't afford, food. And why can't they afford food? Well, geez, because, fertilizer prices have gone up, regular commodities gone up because we're not able to afford the price. Why are those prices going up? Because there's a crunch on energy costs. Why are energy costs going crazy? Because the Democrats refuse to actually do it, and the food shortage is, are going to have massive effects. And one of the things too, just to remember, is that, in Egypt, what was it, the Muslim Brotherhood, I think they actually came to be over the fact of mass starvation in the country, during a famine at a period of time. And so this sort of thing is going to, create a lot of geopolitical, strife when people start to starve. And these radicals will come out of the woodwork, in defense, of, their people per se, and then they will, unfortunately, you'll just repeat history.
Yeah, to an extent, I can agree with that. Let me bring it back though, because I know a lot of people, they look at the energy thing and no one's really connecting that at the end of the day, the root is you want to use electricity, fantastic. Biden, like with Obama, and pushing ethanol without taking into consideration the deoxygenation of the Gulf of Mexico, the destruction of our environment. We're seeing Biden do the same thing and saying, oh, well, we'll have more electric cars. Well, electricity comes from oil and gas, not from solar, not from wind. They're not consistent. Look at Planet of the Humans. Look at the research. We need to either get it from nuclear or we need it from oil and gas, and we can't build nuclear. So there you go. So he's not realizing he's not fixing the problem. He's just changing where the problem is coming from. But I want to step back for a second, and I want to look at children. Let's go back to Florida. Let's talk about this law. The teaching of kindergarten children, 5-year-olds. And when I listen to this, when I listen to all of the various people in the news media, all the entertainers, they talk about this. They keep saying, well, you can't say gay. The people who are actually suing in this, I want you to see this and I'll put it on screen. This is from CNN Politics. It's a LGBTQ advocacy organization, a New York-based nonprofit, a 17-year-old sophomore girl from Florida who's gay, an 18-year-old in Florida who's also gay, a transgender 5th grader, which would be about 10, and 3 same-sex couples who live in Florida with kids. Let me ask you, none of those people are kindergartners. This doesn't affect anyone over the age of 8. No one over the age of 8 is being prevented from having a conversation about having sex, whether it's gay or straight, because the law restricts all discussion of sex. It doesn't matter what your age is, or the type, It doesn't matter what kind of type of sex you're having. It says if you're 8 and under, you can't have your teacher cannot have a conversation with you about sex if you're under the age of 8 in a Florida school. That's what it says. And yet we're listening to these people who are coming out and saying, hey, you don't understand. It's important to talk about sex to kindergarten children, 5-year-olds. I think that's dangerous to our economy, to our society. I think that's dangerous. That destroys our society. I think it's part of the reason why we see so many kids today that are teenagers, pregnant, and single. Am I wrong?
No. I mean, the lawsuit that you just showed there, I'm not really. You knew there'd be something, but it's kind of ironic though. They couldn't find anything closer, to actually dispute the law itself, and they've got people, completely out of the age bracket, which have nothing to do with the actual law itself. So that's just, okay.
Well, they're saying the lawsuit is based on, so people know what it is. The lawsuit is based on saying that this is a violation of the Second Amendment. The First Amendment. It's a violation of the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, that 5-year-olds are being restricted in their ability to talk about sex, in particular, gay sex. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but in my about to be 54 years of life, I am not aware of 5-year-olds trying to have conversations about sex, straight or gay, doesn't matter. It's not a topic that's on their minds. And if your 5-year-old is trying to talk to you about sex, straight or gay, or changing their gender permanently, then there is a problem underlying, in my opinion, because in 5 decades, that's not normal. Or am I wrong? You know parents, you know people in your community totally separate of me. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I mean, normal. That's the thing, is they're trying to redefine what normal is, and this comes back to definitions. I mean, the transgender situation just comes, to the basic fact is what is a man and what is a woman, and they basically, redefined it to say that whatever the child is feeling that it is. Doesn't even have, and the problem. This is the funny thing is this is so it's to whatever the child that thinks that it is, and if the child thinks something is something and they want to then be it, then they can. So they don't even really need to know have a definition of a man and a woman. They just basically have to say that they believe that the definition is what they think it is and be it. But the crazy thing about it is, though, to some degree, especially when it comes to these children and transitioning, is that if they don't know what it is and they can't define it, completely, then somebody is absolutely defining it, saying that, you have to take, have, hormone treatments and then have to have surgery, to fit a definition. And yet there is no definition. You know what I mean? It's just, they like to play this double speak.
You can't define it because a Supreme Court judge who's gone to the Ivy League schools, has done all of the big lawyer stuff, is on the district courts, is on an appellate judge for 9 months. You know what? She can't define what a woman is. She can't define male or female. And if she can't do it because she's not a biologist, how's a 5-year-old going to figure it out?
Yeah, well, apparently they can, according to the ones who wish, to define, what kids can think,
It's insane.
It's insane.
It is. It really is. And by the way, yes, Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be confirmed on Monday, most likely Tuesday at the latest. She will become the next Supreme Court justice after Justice Breyer retires this later this summer. And you should weep for the Constitution because of it. Not because she's a black woman, because who cares? Meaningless, because she's an activist that doesn't want to define men or women, but definitely wants to support teaching kids that white people are evil, black people are victims, and that children at 5 years old should be able to medically permanently change their bodies forever. That's terrifying.
Yeah. And that was one question that was interesting when we asked about her. She defines, the judge defines her, as a woman, but nobody actually defined, asked her, says, well, how do you define yourself as being a woman? I mean, you say you are, but then how do you define yourself as being one? It's like, oh, I'm not a biologist. I can't tell if I am or not. It's like, really? Okay.
Well, Ted Cruz answered that really great. Oh, you are because you say you are. Well, then I'm an Asian man. And hello, today I'm Samoan. For my birthday, I don't know. Maybe I'll be like Elizabeth Warren. I'll be an American Indian. I don't know. Maybe for the 4th of July, I'll decide that I'm Japanese. Why not? And everyone should, I tell everyone, go and fill out whatever forms to get like SBA loans and get loans from the government and put on there today. Just sign you're a woman, you're whatever entitlement group you can get. Just check that off. Why? Because at the moment, you identify as that. And if our Supreme Court, or about to be Supreme Court justice, can't figure out the difference, neither can the government. So they should give you all the entitlements that they're giving away.
No, I totally agree with you on that one. I look back on the past and I think, boy, you know what? Like, could have been a few loan opportunities that I could have taken advantage of if I had just thought that way.
That there's the answer to the college loan crisis. Everyone just be whatever it is that's going to get you the check marks to get the free money. Do that. Okay, so we've been on for a little while. I know there might be a couple people who want to talk about. We've covered a few things here, and I thank you for that because I always appreciate it. But was there anything else?
Can I ask you one other thing?
Oh, of course, go ahead.
One thought I had, the Maxine Waters thing was brought up about her with homeless people, you know, and they got the crisis there. Well, one thought I was thinking is that it just amazes me is that we, how many people cross the border illegally that are just completely homeless? How do all these people end up not being completely homeless and are able to find a place? But meanwhile, Maxine Waters, has situations within her city where people who were born here are all homeless.
Well, because Maxine Waters doesn't care. She cares more about the illegal aliens crossing the southern border against the United States laws. She's more happy to take them and put them into hotels, as we have done for many of the children and for many of the parents. We have taken them and given them hotels on taxpayer dollars. We have given them shelters. We have given them organizations that put them up in housing, and we fund that through the federal government, your tax dollars. But she isn't willing to use that same kind of pressure and that same kind of funding for people who are homeless. And this is a big issue for me because every year for several years now, and I have been an advocate of fighting homelessness. I have been homeless twice in my life. I know what it is to live on the streets, and I am an advocate to try and help people who are homeless, always have been. I do it non-politically. It's just something that I work on. So this is an important issue to me. And I am pissed off that Maxine Waters and many others are more than willing to give money to these illegal aliens and put them up in hotels while their constituents sit on the sidewalks, defecating on the sidewalks of San Francisco and other cities around this country, and they don't care. That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you, though, is it's just the difference in their methodology of taking care of problems. Well, for one, is that one, apparently with the homeless situation, it's just clearly something that they don't want to fix. And the situation with the illegals, it's like they have to, entice, people to such a degree, because, I mean, obviously it would be negative if you heard every single person crossing that border illegally ended up on the streets, in San Francisco begging for food. But you never hear that story. I mean, you got millions of people crossing the border, and somehow they have absolutely nothing, no homes, no means, and yet they don't end up on the street, begging for food. So how does that happen?
Because you take a picture of someone who's homeless and you take a picture of a kid who was sent as an act of child abuse, let's call it what it is, child abuse, to send the child 1,000 miles with a bunch of sex slavers and drug dealers, and you send that child across the border by themselves, that picture is going to get more emotions going, more heartstrings are going to be pulled, which means more votes are going to be made than showing someone who is homeless in the United States, a grown man, a grown woman that are homeless in the street. You're not going to get the same heartstrings pulled. You're not going to get as many votes. They're going by what gets them votes because, again, it's about power. It's not about fixing the problem. It's not about helping their constituents or helping people. It's about getting power. And you get more power from a kid who's like 8 or 9 or 10 walking around in the desert by themselves than you will get for someone who's homeless in Hollywood Boulevard. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's insulting. It's something that should be aggravating. It's a misuse of our money, our tax dollars, but that's just the reality.
Yeah. I mean, and then that's just another avenue of inflation, which people, unfortunately, don't see.
Well, that's true. But let me get to some of the others there. I thank you for the many comments here in many different subjects, which I enjoy having. And, well, let's see where the rest of the conversation goes.
All right. Yep. I'll talk to you. Bye.
All right. Thanks. So that, like you just saw with Jason, you too can call in. You don't have to give anything more than your first name. We'd love to hear from you from anywhere in the world to talk about whatever you think is important, whether I've covered it or not, or to comment on some of the things that I am speaking about, whether you agree with me or not. It's perfectly fine to say, Mike, I do not agree with you. I'm perfectly happy to hear what you have to say, as long as it's respectful. If you tell me that I'm old, I'm ugly, or I'm not black, then I don't care. But other than that, if you want to just have a conversation, let's go for it. Let's have that conversation, whether you agree or not. So yeah, it's really pissing me off, though, and I think it should piss all of us off, that they want to say that telling 5-year-olds, insisting that 5-year-olds must be taught gay sex, that just isn't the First Amendment to me. First of all, the First Amendment doesn't apply to 5-year-olds. Let's be very clear, folks. And I think this is important. The First Amendment does not apply to 5-year-olds. They are not adults. They don't have the same rights as you and I. That's not me just guessing. That's not just a supposition. That is a fact. It is a fact of law. They are not adults. They don't get treated like adults. If anything, they have to be protected more than adults do because they aren't capable to survive. They're not capable of being able to protect themselves. So they must be protected, which includes from speech that they do not understand, nor do they understand the consequences of their actions, which is why we don't let 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds drive cars. We don't let them vote. We don't let them become doctors or decide what medications they're going to take. They don't get those choices because they don't have the capability to make a decision. They don't have the comprehension for that. But those same people who acknowledge that these kids can't vote, that they can't drive a car, that they can't make decisions and must be protected are the same people who are telling you they must be taught to be gay and have gay sex and to be transgender. And I want to be very clear. I'm not against people being gay or trans or whatever you want. You want to be a toaster? Fantastic. Be a toaster. I could care less. Honestly and absolutely, I don't care because it doesn't involve me. And you're not forcing me to be a toaster, and you're not forcing people I know to be a toaster. That's your choice. You make it as a grown adult. A 5-year-old doesn't know the difference. A 5-year-old doesn't understand the consequences. A 5-year-old doesn't have the comprehension, and we need to protect them. To say that we're denying them a First Amendment right or a Title IX right is a lie. That is a lie and an excuse. It is an attempt to pervert the usage of the law and to twist people's minds. And that's something we need to call out. Not because they might or might not be gay. I don't care. That's not the issue we're talking about. We're talking about training people not to think and to program them as if they are on a railroad track and there is only one direction they can go. We've seen this. I've talked about it at SUNY Broome, a college here in the southern tier of New York, where they have programs, and they're going to have another one in May, where they are going to teach the kids to be on a railroad track. There is only one answer, only one conclusion that you can come to at the end of the line, and that's all you know. And if we do that to children at 5, they are going to be no better than drones when they get to be 18. It is bad for America. Not because they may or may not be gay or may not want to be trans. That's not the issue. It's not even a concept because the kids can't understand that concept. It's entirely different. And I think it's dishonest to say that you're trying to protect a 5-year-old's First Amendment rights that they don't have. That's just reality. That's just being honest. And to say anything else is you're trying to pull on people's heartstrings to get them to make a decision that they wouldn't make if they actually thought about it sensibly. Not because, and again, it's not against gays. And no, it's always trite to say, oh, but I know many friends who are gay. I know lots of people who are trans, and I do. And you know what? I tell them the same things I'm telling you. Not all of them like that. And that's okay. They don't have to. And if they're my friends, they don't have to agree with me, like your friends don't have to agree with you. They can say, well, I don't agree with you. Okay, I think that's wrong. Okay, fantastic. But I believe it's very much, I have no problem that someone who's 18 says, I want to be gay. Fantastic, be gay. You want to be a toaster. Fantastic, be a toaster. You want to change your sex? Go for it. That's on you. By the way, none of that costs my tax dollars. You don't get any of my tax dollars for that. Those are your personal choices, your personal consequences. You deal with it, not me. Don't ask me for money on, if you're my friend, ask me for money. Fantastic, I'll help you as best I can. If you're someone from, I don't know, Timbuktu, I don't care. That's not my problem. Just like I'm not their problem. So that's entirely different. We're not talking about grown adults. We're talking about children. And it's dishonest to say that you're trying to protect rights that they don't have and that aren't in danger. It's dishonest. Hot Chicks mentions this country is too weird, and it's getting worse. User says that that's the point, though, that they're trying to make these kids into drones. And I truly believe it. When you cannot ask questions, when government officials will not respond to media requests, when the news media itself is hiding facts from the public. How many times in the last 2 years have we not watched the news media turn around 4 5, 6 months later, or in one case, of course, 2 years later, where they turn around and tell us that the information we were told is a lie. Russia collusion, it's a lie. The Ukraine phone calls with President Trump, a lie. The laptop from Hunter Biden they lied to us about it. There have been lies. How about Joe Biden and the potentially 9,000 Americans that are still in Afghanistan to this moment that the news media will not ask him? They will not ask him about Americans that have been abandoned. The number one priority of the government, protect our citizens. And he isn't. He abandoned them. They're still abandoned to this day, and no one will ask about it. This is a problem. And if we have a government that is willing to do these things and to lie to us on these levels, how can we trust what they are doing? And how can we not be surprised that we are seeing, as I have just shown you, and I'll show you again, that Saudi Arabia is saying that they are going to go and help the Chinese. They're going to work with the Chinese because they have gone through what is, in their words, a divorce. That under the Obama administration and now again under the Biden administration, they feel like America has betrayed them, has thrown them to the wolves, is abusing them, and they have zero interest in helping that same nation, the United States, our country, because they have been abandoned and abused. Biden, by himself, is destroying global stability, and he is making our allies into our enemies. And that's pretty bad because Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates weren't the best allies we've ever had. But it's a lot better than having them being aligned with our direct enemies, like China, the Communists of China, the CCP, the Chinese Communist government that wants to end the United States. Just like Iran wants to kill Israel and the United States. They have said it. They've been saying it for 4 decades. I know some of the people viewing this aren't old enough to know that. I am. 54 years. I remember when they took 400 American hostages and promised to kill America. They have never stopped saying that. And yet, Biden wants to give them money to be able to kill Americans. He wants to give them missiles so they can kill Americans. And he wants to tell you that that's going to make you safe. It's like telling me that, it's like Eric Adams telling me the problem is that the robbers had a gun, not the fact that they were robbing a mother and a child. It's like listening to Maxine Waters tell us that, hey, don't worry, go home even though you're homeless and you don't have a home. Am I missing something here, folks? Do we not see the destruction of America happening? And it's about to get way worse. Here's something that really isn't being said on American news media, and you really, really need to hear this. Because this is going to affect your pocket. This is going to affect your savings, all of your money. This is going to affect you, the American economy, your jobs. It's going to affect you. The Kremlin warns the West. Ruble for gas scheme is a prototype. Came out today. This is announced by Reuters. Again, we use as much left-leaning news media as we can to show you this isn't a right-leaning bias. This is the reality that is out there. That's why I use mostly left-leaning sources. It's not about right versus left. This is what's happening. Now, what are we seeing? The Kremlin has made it very, very clear that they want to get paid in rubles instead of dollars. And they realize that right now they can't do it. Any new contracts they're going to make for oil, gas, for wheat, for fertilizer, for uranium, everything that they're able to sell, they're going to get paid in rubles or some other currency, not the United States dollar. Now, you may say, well, that doesn't sound that bad. I mean, one, who's going to buy it from them? Nobody's going to do that. Yes, they will, because people need the oil, the gas, the wheat, the fertilizer and the uranium that Russia provides. It's not something that we can just instantly replace. We can't walk away and say, well, we don't need that anymore. You need wheat to feed people and to feed animals. That's a fact. You need fertilizer to grow the crops to feed people. That's why we're about to have a food shortage. So these are things that must be bought. If they're only going to be bought in rubles and not in dollars, the dollar is worth less. If, and here's the worst case scenario, I'm about to make it very clear for you. If all of a sudden we change and we're suddenly using the Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, British, any other currency than the American dollar suddenly loses its value. If they're using something other than dollars, we're no longer the superpower. We're no longer the economic giant. And our money no longer buys what it used to buy. You want to see prices skyrocket? You want to see your money disappear? Let the rest of the world use anything other than a dollar to buy the things they buy, and you're going to see that you will never be able to afford another Apple iPad or an iPod or an iPhone. You won't be able to afford that TV that's made in China. You will not be able to. You will no longer be a first world nation with all the comforts and creature comforts that we have as a nation. We will suddenly become a second class world. We're going to be something more like Spain. We're going to be more like Italy. And if you think that's a good thing, look at those nations. No, it's not. I think it's a good thing. Oh, all right. So we have someone who wants to call in, and I want to thank you. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, your host. And may I ask, what's your first name?
Hey, Mike, it's John. What's going on?
Hey, John, what's going on?
Mike, I think this is really going to hurt the liberals where it really counts if we have food shortages. If they can't get their soy, they're done for. The amount of soy they consume, I mean, they're going to go crazy. I think this is the only way they're going to start paying attention.
No, come on. They got guacamole instead.
Ugh, don't even remind me. Don't even remind me, Mike. No, if they don't get their soylent out here, it's so big. You have no idea. I go to every burger chain, and they have that Impossible Burger, and I just don't see anyone eating it.
Isn't that made with bugs?
Probably. Is it made with bugs? I'm gonna guess it is.
I know they have a bug burger that's made up of ground bugs and worms, and they have another one that's made out of vegetables.
I don't even want to think about this. But Mike, I just tuned into the show. I saw you were going to talk about the Chris Rock Will Smith situation. If you already have,
already did. But go ahead.
All right.
Well, tell me your thought on it.
Let me give you my thoughts. Defending a woman's honor, absolutely respectable for a guy. However, slapping a man is never respectable. You either go all in with a punch or you do nothing.
So you're not upset that he hit Chris Rock. You're upset that he hit Chris Rock in such a female-oriented manner.
First of all, it was a very fair way to attack Chris Rock. One, he's a comedian too. You have to understand context. Defending a woman, if a guy is being an absolute jerk on purpose, that's one thing. Attacking a comedian for making a couple jokes, that's a whole nother thing. And I cannot believe people are taking Will Smith's side on this. I cannot believe it. I can't believe they're calling this like
Will
racism
Smith is
or
more
misogyny.
Well, they're calling it racist, which I don't know how it's racist when everybody involved is black. But Will Smith is a bigger name than Chris Rock, so that makes him more important.
That is the way Hollywood works. Now, I've heard conflicting stories. So I've heard from some people in the Oscars. I think it was the Oscars, correct? It was an Academy Awards.
It was Oscars. Well, the Academy Awards are the Oscars.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone watches these shows, and I think this is the only reason people are still talking about this. But
second lowest in history.
Even with an incident that people are talking about, I'm sure the clip has more views than the actual performances.
Yes.
But as I was saying, some people are saying the Oscars asked Will Smith to leave, but other insiders at the company have said no. They did not ask Will Smith to leave at all afterwards. I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think the Oscars is just kind of covering up because now they have to kick Will Smith out, and they were kind of...
Well, Will Smith, he resigned.
Right.
So basically, he did what Nixon did. Before they could kick him out,
he resigned. Oh, yeah.
So he ran away before they could do it, so he can take the high road and say, well, I made just... No, it was never a choice. He was going to get kicked out anyway.
Right.
They're trying to find a way to be as progressive as possible, but yet still look like they have some kind of control, because they have no control over this. This is, no matter what they do, they're going to be blamed because it's black, because something racist. Something about this is racist, and they're going to be blamed for being racist no matter what they decide. They're going to be blamed because they're not sensitive to alopecia, a non-life-threatening disease that, that a super rich woman like Jada Pinkett can easily resolve any day of the week. Yeah, it bums her out. She's still rich. She's still powerful. She doesn't care. Okay? No one else does. So they're just trying to find a way to make this look as progressive as possible and yet not step on too many people's toes.
It seems to be backfiring. I mean, Hollywood's in a free fall right now. You can see what's going on with Disney, and now the shareholders are saying, you need to stop. You need to stop with this woke stuff. Get back to programming.
Well, it's because no one wants to pay for it. No one wants to see the movies they're making. No one wants to see the programs that... I mean, how many times have people watched the Disney Plus programs, like outside of The Mandalorian? All the rest... even Book of Boba was pretty disappointing for a lot of people, because in each and every one of these programs, Hawkeye, the current one with Moon Knight, we've been seeing over and over again, they keep pushing this different parts of the progressive agenda, and everyone's going, I don't want that. The Halo is doing the same thing. Star Trek Discovery, Picard. No one wants this stuff.
No one does. Fans don't want it. But now, counterpoint to your question about Disney, do you think it's because of superhero burnout? The people are tired of all the superhero movies. You don't think so?
You know how long there have been superheroes in human culture?
I'm not denying that, but it seems like now, every 2 months, there's a new film. Every year, there's about 4 superhero movies.
Doesn't matter. Insane. Doesn't matter. There were comic books before that. There were movies and songs, and there were the myths and legends. We've always had them throughout our history. We've got how many books talking about people going out into space and being heroes or gaining powers? We've got books about this stuff. I mean, Lord of the Rings, all of that. It's all the superhero trope. We have always had that in one form or another. Even you look at the Jason Bourne. Come on. No one's... Yes, you can be close to that. It's somewhat realistic, but come on. You see the way he's bouncing around off of buildings and he's still alive. Come on. John Wick, this is a superhero. So we've always had that. It's not the question of, are there too many superheroes in our media? It's, what's the story of that superhero? Do we care? I don't care about Rey, because Rey isn't a human being. Rey is a progressive image on a screen that everyone's bowing to. I could care less about that story. It doesn't invite me into it, and I'm not going to follow it. But yet we're being told, that's the message you have to get with, and we want to teach that to 5-year-olds. And I'm telling you, screw you, I don't want it.
I agree with you on this. I agree that the stories need to be better. I completely agree. I think personally, the way the box office is going, I think superhero films, and I've heard a lot of arguments for this, are going the way of the Western. I think you look at the 60s and 70s where Westerns were prolific, and they're everywhere. I can't go 2 feet without seeing a superhero sign. It's not like it was before. You're right. There are big superhero movies. I completely agree. There are comics, there are books. But now it's just so oversaturated. Now we're getting 6 movies a year. It feels like the way of the Western, where you had like 7 different Western programs on TV. And I think it's slowly going to become the way of the Western, where it slowly starts to die out. And I think part of that reason is because they aren't doing anything new. You're right. It's progressive woke nonsense. I think that's part of it. And I also think it's just an oversaturation. And I think Disney's kind of in a rough spot because they don't have anything else to offer. They're not making really new IPs as much as, they have to do the Pixar movie that gets maybe one film. They're not making these new IPs. So I think they're in a rough spot. And I think part of that is because of the wokeness, and I think part of it is oversaturation. I think they're in a difficult spot. We'll see what happens with it, to be honest. I think a lot of people are starting to boycott Disney, though. I'm talking to more and more people down here in Arizona who are canceling Disney Plus, refusing to go to the parks, don't want anything to do with Disney right now. A lot of parents are saying enough and looking for alternative programming, which is hard right now.
Well, that's why the Tuttle twins do so well. And there's always going to be and people forget, and maybe they get reabsorbed, like, oh my God, we're going to lose this type of story. It didn't always exist in this manner. The stories always change. There's always an ebb and flow. You cannot get told the same story over and over and over again and expect people to be as in love with it as they heard the first time. But that's our politics today. Everything is about the politics, and it's about the empowerment of an elite group of individuals, and it's on a loop. You know what they call that? Brainwashing. You know what else they call that? That's called communist indoctrination. That's what they did in China with the Red Book. There is no other message on TV, on radio, in the books. Nothing else existed. They burned all the books. There was only one channel on TV, only one radio station, and it was always on by law. Otherwise, you would be punished because it's about indoctrinating you. It's changing your mindset. You only know one thing. You don't have to believe me. Listen to Lily Tang Williams, great friend of mine. She's running for Congress. I support her. She's one of the most avid Americans defending the Constitution that I have ever met. And she was born in China under Mao, who is a mass murderer. And she is willing to tell people the truth about her life. And that makes her wonderful. That's it. But yet, why isn't she a household name? Why aren't we hearing this? Because that doesn't fall in line with the message. And the message is you must serve the state. You must serve these elites. And people, while we have freedom, we're rejecting it. And they don't know what to do. And that's the problem.
And I mean, that's why shows like yours and alternative media is growing so much, especially right now, right? With the advent of YouTube, despite all their censorship, a lot of these shows still get through.
Well, we have to.
TV.
Because people are desperate to say, well, wait a minute, there is another voice. Am I the only person out there? And then you go on YouTube and you see someone like me. Oh, well, I'm black. They want to talk about representation. You know what? You need to give me a bigger show. Why? Because I'm a black, Hispanic, conservative. How many of those are on TV right now? There aren't.
Right.
Put me on somewhere.
And I mean, with the rise of independent media, I think Hollywood, and I mean, this goes back to the Oscars, this goes back with Marvel movies, we can see all of this stuff now for free, and we can see it not from the people who've been producing it for the last 70, 80 years. We don't have to rely on Hollywood. We don't have to rely on radio anymore. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more. That's why all these streaming services had to come out so fast. The advent of TV, tuning in to cable program is dead. I don't know a single person who has cable anymore other than at nursing homes.
Well, lots of people do. They're not dead. They may be dying, but they're not dead.
Not yet, but with the Oscar numbers, it's going to keep dropping. Even look at the news channels, right? Fox and CNN, the most watched news networks. I mean, they're pulling in a fraction of what they used to. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more, and I think overall, independent media is a fantastic thing. I think it's good to get alternative viewpoints. And I think right now, every big Hollywood media exec is scared out of their mind. I really do. And so they got to go back to the cash cow, being these franchises we know and love, and they got to butcher them because they got to put it out, and they got to put out their message somehow. Well, I think that's what they're resorting to.
I think it is to a certain extent, although it's so obvious that they could do something else. Like, as I think I'm pretty normal in that when I watch Russell Brand, who, I don't usually agree with much of what he has to say, but I like the way he has to say it, and I like the fact that he does his homework. I listen to Steven Crowder. I listen to Ben Shapiro. I listen to Gothics. I listen to Young Ripa and some guy.
Mhm.
Then in that group alone, separate of all the stuff that I read from international news media, but just those guys alone, you're talking about a huge spectrum of different points of view, and I wouldn't necessarily put any of them on the right. They're
Mhm.
centrist to left leaning, libertarian overall, and yet that's more interesting. And those guys combined, hell, look at Tim Pool. He beats
Mhm.
CNN on a regular basis. That's what the public wants. That's because we're
Mhm.
free.
Yeah.
I think the true battle right now isn't about the media or the medium that it shows up on. It's the
Mhm.
battle between here's people with free thoughts, free opinions, free conclusions that, and I say free as in freedom. They are free to
Mhm.
make their own conclusions, to have their own understandings. And then there's the rest of it going, you're on a railroad track and there's only one destination. And they don't know how to keep everyone on that railroad track with the freedom we have
No.
so far.
No, I completely agree, and that's why they're using franchises that we know and love, and they're butchering them because. And I do disagree a little bit. I do think it's
Mhm.
more of a battle of the platforms right now, and I do disagree that a lot of people have cable. I think more and more people every year are cutting the cable to an insane degree. Like I said, I don't know a single person in any age range right now who still has cable.
Okay.
I just don't. And I'd be interested to see what your audience has to say if they still have cable or think about cutting it. But we'll see what happens in the future. I think we're going to get more and more independent media. I think we're going to start seeing things like the Daily Wire, more of their movies start popping up and different things like that. But thank you again for having me on the show, Mike. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing the thoughts. I thank you for your time.
No problem. Have a good one, Mike.
You too. So, folks, as you heard, you too can call in at any time at 607-242-1582. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. You can talk about something completely different. I'm always open to hear your voices and to hear your thoughts about everything from anywhere in the world. And I know we have an audience in the United Kingdom, in France, in India, in Canada, and Peru, a few other places. I always love hearing from all of you. No matter what you're thinking, I want to hear it because it matters. Your voice matters. And that's also, by the way, why if you haven't, please like, share, and subscribe. Because God knows the algorithms of the internet overlords will not share this out. They don't want more voices. They don't want you to hear a Russell Brand. They don't want you to hear a Gothics or just some guy or anybody else other than their approved media. And that's the big thing, to have them say, oh, it's not approved. You can't think that. And that's what we have to fight against. Hey, Mike, I'm perfectly fine with it. Have a great meal. Cortese is great food, by the way, folks. If you're in the southern tier of New York, there is a restaurant called Cortese. They're very good. I enjoy them. I'm not getting paid for this. This is not a plug. This is just my opinion. I enjoy it. They make a wonderful veal francaise, which I particularly love that. And they have a good-sized portion of food. I enjoy them. Also, the Belmar Pub, who are my dear friends. I love them. Love that place. Great food, great portions. I would recommend that as well. So never worry about if it's a choice between eating or watching the program, eat. I want you to eat because you know what? Food's getting scarce and I want you fed. But you can always watch the show afterwards and leave your comments. I'm always happy to hear them. And I do read and respond to comments even after the shows. Not a problem at all. So never let that stop you. So we're talking about a bunch of things. And like I'm saying, if we see, we have pushed, we were talking about the economy. We're talking about your dollars. We're talking about your life savings. That the West's actions on Russia believes that they are helping to push the dollar down, that they are fighting an entirely different war with us than we're fighting with them. See, the United States right now is in the middle of a proxy war. The Ukraine is our proxy, partially because we have biolabs there that we need to protect. You know, those hidden labs that we use to be able to do things that you can't do in the United States. I mean, that's why we built the lab in the Ukraine, because no one's paying attention. Kind of like the lab in Wuhan. We built that. Gain of function. Why did we do that there? Because it's illegal here in the United States. Same thing, similar thing in the Ukraine. But the reason we're using the Ukraine to fight Russia, because we don't want to fight Russia directly, because we don't think we can win, especially under the leadership we have right now with General Milley, who's more than willing to talk to China and tell them all of our secrets. We got Joe Biden, who can't remember who he's fighting. He doesn't even remember if he's in charge or not. So we don't want to directly fight Russia, but we can do it through the Ukraine. Let the Ukrainians die, give them all the weapons, give them a bunch of money, let them fight the fight for us. That's not going so well. Russia on their side, though, is saying, hey, well, we got a great answer to that. We're just going to get rid of your dollar. We're going to get rid of your economy. We're going to wipe out your money. And if they can do that, and they can, then it destroys us. It puts us into a depression like we've never imagined before. We are already going into a recession. The depression that if the dollar is no longer the dominant money in the world, there is no one alive today who can even guess at how bad that's going to be. And I've been alive for 54 years, and I've seen stagflation. I've seen lines for fuel. I've seen money being tight and seen many recessions. And I'm telling you, you have no idea. And those who are 25 and under, you've never seen bad days. I mean, you were born at or right after the Twin Towers were attacked. People haven't, the biggest thing most people who are 25 and under right now, the worst thing you've seen was the recession because of the end of the real estate bubble bursting. That wasn't that bad. You may have thought it was bad. That's not the worst thing that's been happening in the last 50 years. Hell, it's not the worst thing that's happened in the last 100, easily. But if you think that was bad, wait until the dollar is no longer the dominant currency. You can't imagine how bad it's going to be. Speaking of your money, did you know that the government wants to take your money that you don't have yet? Not a lot of people have been talking about this. Joe Biden has decided that he wants to tax the uber rich, the billionaire tax. That's probably what you heard of, the billionaire tax. Now, I know the first question most people are going to have, Mike, why do I care about a tax on billionaires? I'm not a billionaire. And I can tell you, I'm not a billionaire. Hell, I'm poor. I'm out of work. I haven't been working since 2020 when the business closed around me and I don't have a job. And since I'm unvaccinated, they won't give me a job. Okay, whatever. So I'm not rich. You're watching this. You're most likely not rich. And if you are rich, subscribe to the show and become a sponsor. Thank you. I need the money. So but really, realistically, you're not rich. I'm not rich. Why do we care about a billionaire's tax? Okay, I'll tell you why. One, the very first thing is no tax that has ever been created by the United States is ever removed. Once you add the tax, it's not going to go away. Now, the amount of that tax may go up, may go down, but it's never going to disappear. Every tax you've ever had will always be there. The government will never stop taxing you once it adds a new tax in. Two, if they tax today, if they're taxing billionaires, tomorrow they're going to tax you. Always works out. How many times have we heard, oh, this is only going to affect the rich? And then 2 years later, you go and you look and it goes, oh, well, that same tax is now hitting me. It always affects you. They always will include you, the average poor person, into the same tax that they're giving against the rich people. It's just a matter of when do they tax you, because the government's going to need the money because they want to give you free stuff. They got to pay for free college. They got to pay for people getting out of jail. They got to pay for stuff. And they want to give you free stuff. Where do you think that free stuff is paid for? It comes from your pocket. So they start off with, oh, we're going to get it from the billionaires. Except that's not enough money to run the government for what, a month and a half? That's it. It's not enough money. They need more. That's why they hired 86,000 IRS agents to look into your bank accounts. You forgot about that one, didn't you? We didn't on this program. They hired 86,000 IRS agents to look at your PayPal, to look at your Cash App, to look at every transaction, every credit card, every bank account, every way that you get money. They're looking at it right now to find out how they can take more of your money. That's a fact. And now they're going to add a tax, and that tax eventually will get to you. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem I have with this, and user, you're mentioning it, unrealized gains. See, the United States government, by law, as reviewed by the Supreme Court, cannot tax you on money you don't have. Unrealized gains. It's called a direct tax versus an indirect tax. They cannot indirectly tax you other than our taxes every year, your income tax. Other than the income tax, they cannot, by law, they cannot tax you on unrealized gains. This is a brand new thing. And this is why Democrats historically have always said, no, this is stupid. You're not going to do this. Because if they can tax billionaires on money they don't have, they can tax you on money you don't have. See, the billionaire tax isn't about billionaires. It's not even about making the money from the billionaires, because we all know the billionaires are going to take their money. They're just going to go to another country. They're going to put it into something that can't get taxed. They do this. This is the way they hedge their money. And it's legal. I'm not upset about that. My problem is it's the unrealized tax. Let me try and make this as simple as I can. So if you own a house, no, I'll make it even simpler. You own a pair of sneakers. You own a pair of Air Jordans. And your Air Jordans, you say you bought them for $500. So they're worth $500. But if you want to sell them on eBay right now, you only get $100 for it. So the real world value for those Air Jordans you have is $100. Doesn't matter how much you bought it for. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks it's worth. You can sell it, and the only price you can get is $100. So that's what it's really worth, $100. But because someone else, like Nike, are saying it's worth $500, the government is going to say, you have something worth $500. And one day, you might sell it for $500. So that means we're going to tax you on that future $500. It doesn't matter that today it's only worth $100. Doesn't matter what it's really worth, it's what it might be worth tomorrow. And since they can figure out and say it's worth $500, they're going to tax you $500 for something that's worth $100 right now. Now, if you're like the average person, you don't have the extra money for that tax. So what you have to do is you have to sell those sneakers for $100, and then you have to sell something else so that you can pay the tax that didn't actually exist on money you didn't actually have. Do you see how bad that is? You didn't just sell what you had to sell extra just to pay the tax that on something that wasn't real, on money you didn't have. Because one day you might have that, maybe, sort of. And you're going to pay that tax, that extra tax on the unrealized gains every year. So this year you're going to pay on a $500, well, you're going to pay for those Air Jordans that are worth $500 this year, next year, the year after that. Doesn't matter if you're only able to get in the real world $100 or $50 or $75, you're still paying $500 because the government says it's worth more. Because one day it might be worth more. So you're going to pay for it. You say, well, Mike, I don't have. So that's true if you have a car, if you have a house, if you have property, if you have sneakers, anything. If they can do it to a billionaire, do you think you have more power with the government than a billionaire does? Do you think you have better lawyers than the government than billionaires have? I'm being honest with you. Because once a tax, does anyone disagree with me? Once the government creates a tax, it never goes away. It never goes away. It may get bigger, it may get smaller, but it never goes away. I think we all agree on that. And I think we all agree that once there is a tax put on any one group of people, it will eventually go to everyone because the government always wants more money. The government always needs more money. They're $31 trillion in debt today. You think they're going to be in less debt tomorrow? Come on. Look at the way Biden's going to add another $5 trillion with his Build Back Better or whatever he wants to call it. We're not going into less debt. We're going into more debt. So they need money. They got to find it. And if the dollar is no longer the capital of the world, we're going to need, that means everyone's going to call in our loans and we're going to need to pay that off, which means we're going to desperately need more money. They're going to increase that tax to everyone, not just billionaires. That means you. And now the government's going to say, you've got something that's worth money. That might be worth money tomorrow. We're going to tax you on it. Find the money. Sell everything you have to pay us for that money you don't have that doesn't exist today. That should scare you. That's why the billionaire tax is a bad idea. I know. Billionaires are evil. There's a TV show that says billionaires are evil people. So it must be true. Why would they make a TV show about billionaires being evil people if they aren't evil people? Ooh, my. We hear from the left all the time. Rich people are evil. They're just evil. I don't know anyone who's going out saying, hey, I want to be poor. I don't see them running around saying we want to be like the Hindu monks and we want to live in poverty. No one's lining up to be poor. But, being rich is evil somehow, some way. Okay, fine. And if they can do it to them, they're going to do it to you because you are rich, because you've got money. And if they can tax unrealized gains, you've got money. You might have money tomorrow. So therefore, they'll take it from you today. Yes, and user, you know what, user, you're not wrong. Those dandelions in your yards can be food. People make food, dandelion tea and all that. It's food. And if there's no food around and you're eating dandelions, well, that's an asset. And therefore, you're farming because you have dandelions in your yard. They're going to tax you on that. It sounds absurd. I know it does. But I'm not telling you what's going to happen today. I'm telling you about the consequence tomorrow. This is what the news media won't tell you. When you look at this story, which is from Politico, March 26th, okay? And you listen to Biden, he's talking about how it's only going to affect rich people. It's only going to be taking money away from the rich people by taking unrealized gains, unsold assets. It's money that doesn't exist. And when we use our brains and we say, what does the government always do? It never gets rid of a tax and always includes everyone in that tax. Just a matter of when. Which means these are things that are going to happen to you. Yeah, you're right, user. 30 years ago today would sound insane. In fact, that's part of what I'm going to do on my live stream is I'm going to go over 54 years of America by decades. I'm going to go over the decades and like the things that, remember, it was back in the 70s, there was almost no interracial marriage. It was almost unheard of. There was only 5% of the nation that had interracial marriage. Today, it's well over 20%. If we go back in the day, you used to be able to buy a gallon of gasoline for 43 cents. It's what, $4.50 now? You used to be able to buy a slice of pizza. I remember, I think it was the 80s, you could buy a slice of pizza for 50 cents. What is it, $3.50 now? That's without any toppings. That's just the pizza itself. The prices have, these are things that happen over time. It is a reality. And while it may not happen tomorrow, it will happen in the future. It will happen because our government is in debt. They need the money. And they don't have anywhere to get the money from. We are a service economy. We don't make stuff in America anymore. Thank you, the Obama administration. Obama, Biden. We are a service economy. We don't make things. We just buy stuff from other people. And that means we are dependent on them. Our money isn't being created. It's a problem. Let me get this. I want to show you something, folks. Yes, in the 1900s, you could buy heroin for a cough, and Coca-Cola actually had cocaine in it. That's why it's called Coca-Cola. It's cocaine cola. That's why it was so addictive. That's why they made so much money. It was the most popular in the world. Why? Because it had cocaine in it. That's a fact. It's not a question. It's a fact. I want to show you, folks. $30.3 trillion. That's what the debt is in the United States right now. National debt, $30.3 trillion. Now it's time to scare you. Here's what the debt's going to be in 4 years. In 4 years. Let me show you. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the best case scenario, the best story they can make up right now, $33.8 trillion, almost $34 trillion. That doesn't sound so bad. It is, but it doesn't sound that bad. The OMB, $36 trillion. And if we keep spending like we're spending today, if we keep spending like the Biden administration is doing right now, $42.6 trillion. That's $43 trillion. And historically, the reality is the number is going to be somewhere between 36 and 42. We're usually somewhere between the actual debt and what we're seeing as the spending. We usually wind up somewhere in here. The CBO is almost always wrong. Almost always completely wrong. You're looking at somewhere between, let's call it 38, 40 trillion dollars. Where do you think that money's coming from? To pay for those student loans you want to get wiped out, to pay for that college you want to go to pay for the housing, everyone gets a house, all the things on the wish list of progressives. Where does all that free stuff come from? The billionaire tax is bad. And I know people hate me talking about taxes. They hate me talking about numbers. But it's serious, folks. This is your money. And if you think I'm worried about billionaires, I'm not. I'm worried about me. I'm worried about you. Not popular. Most of the things we talk about in this channel aren't popular because we're talking about the consequence of what's happening right now. And almost always, these things tend to happen. User mentions, do you remember the Onion skit where they had staged the towel ban to go into Congress and take over so they could erase the nation's debt? No. But I don't watch The Onion much, so I don't know. I may have missed that. Think about this, folks. Our oil. You want green energy. If we switch to green energy tomorrow, there would be a blackout of the entire nation. The entire nation would just black out instantly. If we were switched to tomorrow, if we went to solar and wind, if we did that tomorrow, the entire nation would be blacked out. We just can't do it. That's a reality. That's a fact. It's not even a question. It's a fact. So green energy doesn't exist, which means you have nuclear and you have oil and gas. Democrats hate, despise, refuse to have nuclear power. Why? I don't know. Don't know. It is the safest energy source known to man at this moment. Nothing is safer. Nothing is more effective. That's a fact. It's not a question, not an opinion. It's scientific fact. AOC, I am sure, hates this because it is empirically, scientifically, mathematically true. Nuclear power is the best, period. And we can't do it because Democrats don't like nuclear power. Okay, that leaves us with oil and gas. That's it. The numbers are the numbers. You want to have your cell phone to work. You want to plug in your electric car. You want to plug in your electric bicycle. You got to have energy. That means oil and gas. It's the only one left. Okay. And Biden has came up with a bright idea that we're going to use our emergency reserve. Keywords, emergency reserve, to try and keep the oil prices down during this election season. It's not permanent because you can't permanently use your reserve. It gets used up. It's an extra. It's a reserve. So he's doing this for politics, to keep prices artificially lower than they otherwise would be because votes. He wants votes. That's just a fact. Let's call it what it is, folks. Let's stop playing games with the media and say what it is. He wants gas to be cheaper so he can get more votes in 2022 and 2024. That is just a fact. The fact that you're saving money is not really as important as you're going to vote for him because you saved a little bit of money. But it doesn't mean prices aren't going higher. It just means they won't go as high as they otherwise would. But here's the problem. Even though we're doing this, and he's been doing this for a while, he has been using this for a while, it's not going to stop oil prices from going higher. Because this is a limited strategy. It's going to still go up. They did this in November. It didn't work. They're doing it in March. The prices are still up. We have 568 million barrels of reserve gas, of oil, in this nation at this time. Sounds like a lot. It's not. It's not. We use over 1 million barrels a day. That's a little more than an entire year at best. By the way, we got that because under the Trump administration, we were exporting oil. We had so much energy and we had so much oil that we could put it on reserve. That's what the Trump administration did. We were a net exporter. The Biden administration isn't increasing our oil and gas. They're reducing it. That's going to go away quick. We'll be lucky to get an entire year out of that. And that number is not growing. It's going down. And everyone in the world knows it. And OPEC, as we've already discussed, they're not going to help us. Saudi Arabia, they're not going to help us. They don't care. Which means the prices are going to keep going higher. Plan for this, folks. We're trying to give you the reality. We're trying to tell you the truth. We don't have a vested interest like CNN. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I'm telling you when they're doing this to make you vote. They are trying to get you to vote for someone specific. That should scare you. And I know that Biden, when I said Biden isn't planning, he's not trying to increase gas, he's trying to lower the amount of oil and gas in the United States. You may say, Mike, you just don't know that. You're making that up. Except we have this article which mentions that the Department of the Interior projected offshore oil and gas lease revenues. That means the ability to charge oil and gas companies for getting new oil and gas is going to go from nearly $400 million, $395.5 million, to $25 million. It's a decrease of 94%. You know what? This is the 2023 budget for the Interior, the Department of Interior. Links will be included at the end of this program, at the end of the live stream. I'm going to have it down in the description so you can see this for yourself, so you can look it over for yourself. Here it is. $395.5 million. $25 million. Even a loss. We're going to lose so much money. We're not making any money by 2024. We're just going to be losing. We are losing $370 million. That's natural gas. That's oil and gas for the future. Not going to exist. With nothing to replace it. Do you think energy prices are going to go up? Which means food goes up. It means that the cost of everything you buy will go higher. Your electricity for your house will go higher. Heating for your house will go higher. This is going to happen in September. These prices are going to affect you in September. Because the fiscal year for the government is on October. It's not based on January. It's in October. It's going to cost you money. There's so many problems here. And we're trying to let you know, and you may not agree with everything that we have to say. You may not think that we are 100% right. And you know what? I guarantee you, I'm not 100% right. No. Probably 70 to 80% right. Does that sound arrogant? Maybe. Do I think it's correct? Yes. And I'm showing you the data and why I'm coming to these conclusions. In the same way that I can conclusively tell you and show you that gun control has never worked. That what the Democrats tell you every single year for the last 40 years has never worked. Not once. It doesn't work. It's a lie. It's a great way to get votes. It is emotional manipulation. The energy policy of the Biden-Harris administration is a lie. They don't have an energy policy. They don't have an idea of what they're doing. They know how to get votes, and that's all they're trying to do. They have no idea what they're doing for the future. They have no idea how high the prices will go, but they want as many votes as they can get before it gets there. So they're going to lie to you and say, hey, the price of energy isn't going up. Look at the price. It's exactly where it stayed. It's staying at this level at $4.50. It's not going higher. We're doing a great job. No, you're artificially changing the numbers, using up our reserves. And when that's done, the price isn't just going to go to $5. It's going to skyrocket to $7 because we've got nothing else. We have no choice. There is no reserve to fall back on. We have to pay whatever somebody else wants. And Saudi Arabia doesn't like us. They don't like Joe Biden. They didn't like Obama. You think they're going to give us a discount? You tell me. Do you think they're going to give us a discount? They won't even take Joe Biden's phone calls now. And you think that when we have no more reserve left, that they're going to give us a discount? Does that make sense? You don't even have to agree with me. Does that make sense? So let me go back to some of the comments here. User has been banned, mentioned something will happen that will throw off any predictions. It's always true, for the most part. Jason mentions when Biden released oil, it was just an opportunity to buy a dip in the oil and gas companies without increasing any production, so prices will go higher. They can lower gas prices by putting us in a depression or another lockdown. Well, yeah, that would do it. You put us in a lockdown, then no one can go anywhere. That'll make it better. Oh, that's a good idea. And if we're in another lockdown or depression, well, we'll see drug use go up, overdoses go up, domestic abuse go up. We'll see mental health go skyrocketing up. These will be the problems that we saw from the last lockdown, that we saw from the last recession. Yeah, that's the net result. So they're going to wind up causing people to die, if that's the strategy that they're trying to go through. Yeah, and yet another problem. We're using up our strategic reserves, and then there's a world war, or rather, there's regional wars, like I believe, not just in Russia, but probably in the Middle East, maybe China and Taiwan. At the same time that we have to, it's just so terrible. Am I the only one seeing that? I don't think I am. I really don't think I am. I mean, you tell me, folks, do you think I'm missing something here? Am I not understanding something? I know it's not as fun as talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock. I know it's not. But it's more important. Because Will Smith and Chris Rock, that's not going to change your life. It's going to have zero impact on you. You are not changed by that. Whether Chris Rock knocks out Will Smith or not does not change your life. Who cares? Who cares? Will Smith doesn't get to make Bad Boys 4 like you really wanted Bad Boys 4. Do you care? No, not at all. Who cares? But you do care about the money in your pocket, and I'm talking about the money in your pocket. You do care about whether or not you're free and whether or not your kids will be free. And I'm talking about that. And that makes a difference. You know, this White House likes to lie to you a lot. And I know there's people who are saying, but Mike, I heard Biden and I know you're wrong. Because you heard something like this, that Joe Biden was talking about renewable energy. And so, Mike, you just don't know about renewable energy. Joe Biden told me. Joe Biden said, if your home is powered by safer, cheaper, cleaner electricity like solar or heat pumps, you can save about $500 a month on average. That's what he told you. You're going to save $500 a month. Green energy is real, Mike. It's real. You just don't understand. You don't know what you're talking about. No. The answer is he lied. Because it's at best $500 a year. Not a month. A year. You're going to save $1, a little bit more than $1.50 a day. Maybe. In the best case scenario. In the best case, you'll save $1.50 a day. Not a month. Not $500 a month. Not $2,500 a year. $1.50 a day. Joe Biden lied. And I don't say it's a gaffe. I say it's a lie. Because Joe Biden lies. He lied to you about Afghanistan. He lied to you about the Ukraine. He's lying now. I have no faith in him. This isn't just him being old and doddering. And if he is old and doddering, you should be terrified. It should scare you that someone who has that much power is old and doddering. That should never be a president. But he lied. So for all the people who are saying, Mike, you just don't understand how good green energy is. Yes, I do understand it. Been studying it for 15 years. And I can tell you, Joe Biden is a liar. Don't have to believe me. Here's the proof. Coming from New York Post. It's not even a question. The White House had to correct him. Came from the White House. Joe Biden lied. Yes, I do have the ibuprofen for a reason. Hello. There's a reason. Stuff is painful, but it's also important. It is important. So let me ask you guys. So we've been talking about a bunch of things here. And I do want to mention that if you've been with us this long, I do appreciate it and I thank you. I seriously and honestly want to thank you and I appreciate that you've been watching the show. Whether you watch all of it or part of it or you see it live or afterwards, doesn't matter to me. I appreciate and thank you for that. I really think it's important to hear your voices, whether it's on the live stream or otherwise. You guys are great. And I just hope that you like, share, and subscribe. And let other people know about this so that they can subscribe and they can add their voices because it's important. And I do hope that you're going to join us for my birthday on April 6th. I know I've had it up on the screen. I haven't talked about it much. And if you want, you can donate for my birthday. I would love that too. But I want you to know, folks, this is important stuff we're talking about. And the reason why I know it's so important is because the mainstream media doesn't want to tell you this. The information is out there if you know where to find it. And if you know where to piece it all together, the information is there. They just don't want you to figure it out. And they definitely don't want to talk about it. They're going to tell you about gun control, but they're not going to tell you that the gun control they've done doesn't work. That every study that has ever been done, 28,000 studies, show nothing. That there is nothing that actually shows you that for the last 4 decades, anything they have promised you has actually happened. There is no real world evidence of anything they have promised you actually working in terms of gun control. Doesn't happen. Because if it did, if the New York Safe Act, if all the New York regulations, if the red flag laws, if they all worked, we wouldn't be at near record highs of violence. We wouldn't see an increase of 30% in violence in New York State or California or Illinois. Or how many states do I need to go through to make the point? How many cities do I have to go through to make that point that violent crime is increasing, especially with guns, because criminals don't care and gun laws aren't affecting any of the criminals? That having the bail reform is not to your benefit, because we are seeing consistently that at least 10% of those who are being released on bail reform are going right back out and committing crimes. Some of them that same day, in some cases, as has been documented, within an hour of being released. This isn't in your best interest, folks, but it is in the best interest of these politicians getting reelected. That's why I tell you that people like Maxine Waters and Antonio Delgado, that they and Eric Adams, that they're dishonest, that they are lying to your face, that they are using and abusing the system to get more votes, that they want to manipulate you emotionally. I'm not telling you that every Democrat's doing that. I'm not telling you that there aren't any Republicans doing that. I'm not saying that. But I am telling you some of the most egregious examples that I can find that make it clear to you that there is no other way. When you look at this and you look at it with honest eyes, you see this. Because if Maxine Waters said the same exact thing, but she was a Republican, not a Democrat, Democrats would be screaming. How dare you tell homeless people to go home? How dare you, Maxine Waters, tell homeless people you won't listen to them? How dare you? If she was a Republican, that would be the message on Twitter right now. She's a Democrat, she's black, and a woman. So the answer is, we're not talking about Maxine Waters anymore. They won't even talk about her. They won't even talk about this incident. It's gone. Let it go. You misunderstand. We won't look at this. We won't look at the video. We don't want to hear about it. How's that supposed to help you? How does that help the homeless people? How does that do anything except make Maxine Waters more powerful? Antonio Delgado will not answer questions from the press. He will not answer questions from constituents unless they help him get reelected. How is that a good thing for you? I have shown you examples. I have been doing this for 7 months with that member of Congress as a constituent and as a member of the press, and he refuses, and he knows who I am. Every member of Congress, almost every elected official in central and southern New York know this face. They know my name, and they refuse. They run away like it's like turning on the lights and watching the cockroaches run into the corners and the crevices. They're hiding. And it pisses me off more than anything else. I swear, I could care less what Antonio Delgado would have to say. At this point, I don't care, because I think he's going to lie to you, no matter what. But it's not like I'm not going to let him come onto this program and tell you absolutely anything that answers the question. I mean, he will answer the question. He comes on, he's going to answer the question. I don't know that he's going to tell you the truth, but he's going to answer the question. I'm more than willing to have him do it. He's just not going to do it because he's terrified. He's like Anthony Brindisi, terrified to let you know the truth. Because if you know the truth, you won't vote for him. That's his fear. That's what he's running for, to keep his power, to keep his job, to get a really, really great retirement package, to be able to have 4 times as much money as you. He's not the only member of Congress that's doing that. And that should piss you off. It pisses me off. And that's why I'm after Antonio Delgado of the New York 19th District. Not because I think he's better or worse. It's because he won't answer the question. Because he's hiding from you. Because he's manipulating you. And I've caught him, and he knows it, and he's afraid. He's terrified. The worst thing that could happen for Antonio Delgado is that people actually pay attention to this channel and actually say, hey, Antonio, why won't you answer that question? Why won't you answer the question? If you're doing such a good job, if you're working hard like Maxine Waters, like Nancy Pelosi, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if you guys are all doing your job and you're working so hard and you're so effective and efficient, why won't you answer the question? It doesn't get more simple than that. If they're so good, if everything they're doing is so great, why not answer the question? Because it should be real easy for you. It should be real easy for Antonio and the rest of them to answer the questions because they're doing their job and they're so effective, it's that easy. And I know that their supporters love to try and pile in and answer for the elected official. And here's the thing, when you hear people, you ask a question and you hear all these other people on Twitter or on social media, and they want to say, well, the answer is obvious because blah. You're not elected to Congress. You're not the candidate. I don't care what, when I ask a question of Antonio Delgado or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, Anna Presley, Adam Schiff, Kirsten Gillibrand, when I'm asking these guys and gals questions about their policies and the laws that they're putting before us, and all of a sudden some talking head who's usually paid for by the DNC or a member of their staff, when they come in and they say, oh, well, the answer is real simple. You just don't know what you're talking about. You're not the candidate. You're not the person who's elected in Congress. Your impression, your suggestion of what they actually are saying or what you think they've said means nothing to me. There's a reason why I go to the news sources and when I go to these candidates themselves, these elected officials themselves, to try and understand. It's why I provide you guys with data, why I show you where my sources are. Because it's not just me guessing at this, it's me showing you the evidence. And they seem to be terrified of that. You should ask yourself why. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes. So in the last 10 minutes of the program, let me do this for those who are still watching, and I do appreciate and thank you for still watching the program. April 6th is my birthday. I'll be officially 54 years old. Aha! 5 decades, 4 years. Yeah, that'll be interesting. About 19,000 days. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I thank you, and I hope that you will join me. My intention at this moment is that I'm going to be doing as long of a live stream as I possibly can, or several live streams as long as I possibly can, hopefully to raise some money. I'll try and raise some money for veterans and to donate that away. Also to help pay my bills because God knows I'm out of money. And it's hard as a 54-year-old man to get a new job when you're not vaccinated in New York State. Joy of joys, but we'll see. Hey, Agent Black, very good to see you. I know you're like 7 hours ahead of me over across the pond in the United Kingdom. I'm glad to see you. My birthday's on the 6th, not today, but thank you. Thank you for the birthday wish. So we're going to be doing that. I want you to know, so I'm going to be doing extended live streams. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your questions about whatever it is you want to ask about. If you want to ask me what it was like to live in Moscow during the coup attempt, I'll be happy to discuss that. You want to ask me about what it's like to be homeless in California, I'll be happy to go over that. You want to ask me about being in the Marines, I'll be happy to talk to you about that. Just ask away. On the 6th, I'm going to be here to talk to you about all of those things. I'm going to tell you about the racism that I experienced in the 1970s and how that's different than 2020. Because there's a big difference between the two. And the people who tell you that America's always been racist, they have no idea what they're talking about. People who tell you that this is worse now than ever before, they have no idea what they're talking about. People who are telling you that communism's great, socialism's great, they have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm going to tell you from my 54 years of experience exactly why that's the case. And I'm going to take the whole day, if I can, to tell you about it. And to go over all the news that's going on throughout the day. Because no one else is willing to actually have this conversation with you. The news media is getting less and less interested in telling you what's happening and what's going to happen, the consequences, and more about telling you about how you should feel about what's happening. And I don't agree with that. And I hope that you're going to be willing to join us. And I'm sure there will be some people who don't like me that'll be somewhere along the line jumping on in to tell me about the fact that I'm old, or that I'm ugly, or that I'm just not black enough for them, like I care. So that'll be in there too, I'm sure. Also, generally on Fridays, I've been working with the Liberty First Foundation. I've been lucky enough to be a guest of their program every Friday, talking about, well, predominantly the Second Amendment, but also talking about other issues that affect our liberty, our freedom here in the United States. So we do invite you to join us. There's several people who are on that. And I have been working with Rory Salter and being on his program. I've been on there twice now to talk about the various issues as well. So I hope that you'll be able to see some of those programs and to help those people, Rory Sauter, the Liberty First Foundation, my good friend Larry Sharp, who's running for governor of New York. Check out their live streams. Give them some support and some love. John Cordisco, who was with me earlier on the program here today, who was leaving some comments. He has a live stream. Help the smaller channels. Yes, I want to get to 1,234 subscribers. Hopefully on my birthday, we can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do that. But also, I want to support the smaller channels out there as well, because they have unique voices and they are very often worth listening to hear what they have to say, to hear their point of view so that you can make a better decision in your life for you. These are the things that I'm hoping for. This is what I'm looking to do for my birthday and beyond. That's what this channel is about. Not just, I'm not here to be rich and famous. I wish I would. If I wanted to be rich and famous, I'd be a Democrat, would have already been there. That's not going to happen, so I'm not going to get rich and famous. Instead, I want to be here with you, talking about the truth, talking about what matters to you. And I want to do that not just every Sunday, but every time I do a program, every time I do a video. And I always listen to what you have to say. So if you think I'm wrong, tell me. If you think I messed up, let me know. If you think I could do it better, tell me. I'm willing to hear you. Got 5 minutes left. Okay, for 5 minutes, folks, what do you want to know? Tell me. Somebody in chat, tell me. What do you want to talk the next 5 minutes? You got 5 minutes. By the way, please donate to PayPal if you'd like. $1. Donate $1. $1 a month. $12 for the year. That's it. You know what? That's cheaper than anything. It's cheaper than Disney Plus. If you've been here with me for the last 3.5 hours, even $1 for the month, you know what? That's more content than you're getting from most movies. That's more content than you're getting from most video games. $1. That's it. Donate $1 a month. $1 a month. $12 a year. And you get more content, more information, more stuff, more entertainment, perhaps, than almost anything else you're getting out there. It's otherwise free. Yes, I try to be more informative, to try and give you more information from around the world. That's what our goal is. And I think we succeed. And again, I'm not trying to get rich. Just want to pay my bills like you and everyone else. I want to pay my bills and live a good life. That's it. I let trying to be a superstar to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. That's for them. You know, I'm going to be 54 years old. The big thing was when I turned 50, I was like, wow, I'm a half century old. I just looked at some of my photos from earlier in my life, getting ready for Wednesday. And, you know, other than the goatee being, it was black back then, now it's not, looks pretty much the same. I think, you know, a couple wrinkles, but otherwise, pretty much the same. Kept my looks. I'm pretty happy about that. Pretty much. User has mentioned, I wonder how Japan is feeling with everything going on in China. Well, I think Japan is more worried about the fact that North Korea keeps firing hypersonic missiles at them and ICBMs at them. Their biggest threat right now isn't China, it's North Korea, which is a pawn of China, just like Ukraine is becoming a pawn of the United States. So Japan is really, really worried about what's going on with North Korea. But Japan is pissed off because the United States isn't showing support for them, or South Korea for that matter, and that they're kind of on their own. So Japan is not very happy. They haven't been for a while. They've been complaining since the beginning of this year about North Korea to the United States, and we're just not paying attention. Solomon Islands too, yeah. So that whole region, Southeast Asia, they're not happy with the United States. They've all been complaining to the United States, and the only thing they've gotten as a response is Kamala Harris showing up, wiping her hand off after she shakes the hand of South Korean President Moon. They got insulted. They don't forget that. So they're kind of upset. 2 minutes left, folks. Or 1 minute, actually. So I don't think they're very happy. All evidence so far shows they think that the United States has failed in its diplomacy, much like Europe is looking at the United States having failed diplomacy with Russia. No response since 2019 yet, Solomon Islands. It's really sad. It's not a good sign when the most powerful nation in the world has a growing number of nations that are ignoring their leader. Joe Biden's being ignored. You can say all you want about Trump and to tell me that he's evil, terrible, whatever. No one didn't take his phone call. Joe Biden, who's supposed to be this brilliant savior, this wonderful, I don't know, wonderkind of democratic policies and progressivism, and people don't want to talk to him. They don't care what he has to say. That's not leading from a position of power. It's just not. All right. And with that, we've been on for 3 hours, 30 minutes. I thank you, each and every one of you. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday. I'm probably going to start somewhere around either 5 or 9 a.m. I haven't decided yet, but I'll be speaking all day, and I look forward for you dropping in, telling me what you think, and joining me in my discussion about the 50 years of my life compared to what we're seeing today. It'll be interesting. With that said, I thank you. I want you to be well. I look forward to seeing you on my birthday.